To start the meeting on my end.
Mark, yes, I think we can go ahead. Or wait for right when it hits 2 o'clock.
All right, thank you. This is Mark Michaud. I am starting the Prime Gov meeting.
Perfect. So Mark and team, it is just now 2 o'clock. I'll go ahead and welcome everyone to the June Historic Preservation Commission meeting. My name is Taylor Fudge. I'm the chair of the HP Commission. And as you all are probably aware, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we have not hosted a physical location for this particular meeting. Instead, it is live streamed from remote locations. I believe, and Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, that next month's meeting will be in person. Is that correct?
That is correct. We'll be back in council chambers for our July HP Commission meeting.
Perfect. So as a reminder, we've muted everyone's mics except for commission members. We do request that anyone joining us today, please keep your microphone or phone muted until you're called upon to speak. This will help us minimize distractions and ensure everyone can be heard. As instructed in our agenda, those who called or emailed in advance to let us know their name, contact number, and the agenda item they wish to discuss will be recognized first. Before the commission votes on each item, I will ask if any members of the public wish to speak. Anyone who is speaking will be given 3 minutes to relay information to the commission. Since you are muted, when I call on you, please unmute yourself. On a phone, you'll press *6. State your name and address for the record. On a desktop or laptop, you'll hover your cursor over the microphone icon and remove the diagonal red line. If you wish to speak and have not contacted staff in advance of this meeting, you'll need to click the raise hand icon on the computer in Zoom or press *9 on the phone. Staff will unmute you, and then you will press *6 to mute yourself again. If we do lose connection for this meeting, it will be stopped and reconvene once the connection is restored. If communications are unable to be restored within 30 minutes, any remaining items will be continued to the next regularly scheduled Historic Preservation Commission meeting, which will occur on Wednesday, July 7th at 2 p.m. in the Municipal Building in City Council's chambers. The agenda and documents are located at https://okcprimegov.com/public/portal. Please select the agenda item on the right side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see all items that are going to be discussed today. Written comments received more than 24 hours before the meeting are posted online and were shared with commission members. No new materials can be shared during today's meeting. Mark, can you please call roll? Mark, you may be on mute.
I was on mute. Thank you. Commissioner Fudge.
I am present.
Commissioner Klaus Riemann Phillip. Commissioner Vahid Farzana. Commissioner Mary Jo Meacham.
Present.
Commissioner John Milner,
Present.
Commissioner Kasi Poor, Commissioner David Rennie.
Present.
Present? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Linda Schultz. Commissioner Ann Zacharitz.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, I count that we have 5 members present.
Does that mean we have quorum?
Yes, 5
Yeah.
is a quorum. This is Katie.
Perfect. Thank you. Procedures for today's meetings are noted in the agenda. For the sake of time, I'll ask that any participants who are unfamiliar that they refer to that section. There are 2 specific items we like to announce regarding specifically certificates of appropriateness. When an application is approved and after a 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until that CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design, review, inspection, or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Regarding appeals to the Board of Adjustments, any person aggrieved by any decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Item number 2, Katie, what news do we have from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer?
As was already noted, we will be in person for our next HP Commission meeting starting in July. As far as protocols and procedures in council chambers, we won't have as much of a limitation on attendance in council chambers, but we'll still encourage social distancing. Masks are encouraged, though not required, on city property as of, I believe, June 14th. So everyone is encouraged to wear a mask. You're not required to do so. Up on the horseshoe where the commission sits, we will still have the plexiglass dividers in place that have been there since we last went back to in-person meetings for a short period of time last fall. So those provide a little extra bit of a barrier between everyone in attendance. And we will just keep you all informed of any other procedures that come up as that proceeds. We will be having an HP Commission workshop on Wednesday of next week, June 9th, and we'll get an agenda for that workshop out shortly. We do anticipate having a presentation about some streetscape improvements that are planned in Jefferson Park, and some other discussion about topics that commission members have brought up recently at HP Commission meetings.
Perfect, thank you.
That's all for me.
Perfect. So item number 3 is acceptance of the minutes from the previous meeting. Have my fellow commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the May 5th meeting? And do we have a motion to accept or modify?
This is Commissioner Zacharitz. I'll move approval of minutes from last month.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Moved by Commissioner Zacharitz, seconded by Commissioner Meacham. All in favor, please vote in Prime Gov.
Excuse me, Katie, did the motions show up?
Not
I
yet.
still see that we are waiting for a motion in a second.
Yes. Who motioned?
Commissioner Zacharitz.
Okay, I see Donnie showed up.
Perfect.
I'm going to open the votes now. Okay, that should be a win. I'm closing the votes.
Okay, that motion carries. The minutes were passed. Katie, anything from code enforcement?
Nothing to report specifically from code enforcement. As always, if you have questions about an item that you see on that code enforcement report that is included in your packet each month, feel free to reach out to staff or to contact the city's Action Center for more information.
Thank you. Anything on continuance announcements or requests?
We do not have any continuance requests this month, and we have not received any new requests since the agenda was posted.
Perfect. How about public hearings?
No dilapidated structures this month and no National Register nominations this month. Although the ones you all reviewed recently will go to City Council next week for their recommendation, so we'll keep you posted on that. Then we do have 2 items on the consent docket.
Perfect. Do any of the commissioners have any items that they want to pull or have reviewed, or of the 2 items that we have on the list? Okay, Katie, do we need a motion on those 2 items if we don't need anything pulled?
Yes, we do need a motion to approve the consent docket.
Excellent. Do we have a motion to approve the consent docket?
Commissioner Ramey motions to approve the consent docket.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Moved by Commissioner Remy, seconded by Commissioner Meacham. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
Can I get the movers and second again, please?
Commissioner Remy moved. Commissioner Meacham seconded.
I see.
Okay. The items on the consent docket were approved. The motion's passed. If you're on the consent docket, you're free to stick around, or you can leave as your projects have been approved. Item number 6D, cases for individual consideration. We've got 10 today, and I believe there was one that was originally left off the agenda but added on after the fact. Katie, is there anything that we needed to note about that particular item?
No, the agenda was amended, but it was all done within the window of time that is required for posting the agenda or posting amendments to the agenda. So you have the item on the agenda, and the staff report and attachments are all online as part of the packet. So nothing else required to do there.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll move on to item number 1, HPCA 21-00028 at 614 Northwest 26th Street.
This is located in Paseo, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Fallon Brooks, Jellybird Home Design, LLC, for David Barthel for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct dwelling elective, 2, construct garage and apartment elective, 3, install paving elective, 4, install fence elective, and 5, request variance elective. This is a project that the commission has seen previously to construct a new dwelling on a vacant lot in Paseo. The applicant has made several revisions to the design based on comments from the previous commission meeting, and some revisions to both the primary dwelling, to the paving that is proposed, and to the garage design as proposed. Staff has recommended approval of all items with some conditions regarding specification of materials for the primary dwelling. There are also some conditions addressing the garage size and the illustration of the garage as a second dwelling unit that would need to be clarified with development services, potentially with subdivision and zoning, because a dwelling unit is not allowed under the existing zoning. You see on here that there is still an item to request a variance for the second dwelling unit. The applicant hasn't really indicated whether or not they intend to pursue that. So that could be just left off at this time and not addressed until they're ready to clarify how they want to address that. But the applicant is present to respond to any questions. We have not received any comments from the neighbors or neighborhood association about this project.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. So staff has recommended approval, looks like with some conditions on this particular item. What questions do we have from commission for Fallon?
Yeah, so I just want to clarify real quick. We're not going to go with the garage apartment situation. It's actually just kind of like a work studio, so it's a space above the garage. We won't be pursuing zoning on that. The only thing that we would pursue any kind of special zoning before the Board of Adjustment for would be setbacks for the garage, because we're a little tight on turning radius back there, but that's the only thing that we would really ask for in terms of special zoning. But yeah, and then I don't know what the clarification questions are, so.
This is Katie. I'm sorry, Fallon, I missed the last thing that you said. You didn't know what is?
I wasn't sure what the clarification questions are. I know that the only materials that we really left off of there were the pedestrian doors, not including front door. We did include that. And then there's like lighting. We haven't included lighting yet because we figured that would be much further down the road. We didn't get that far.
I think light fixtures, and I think I think there were some options on windows that were specified where we just needed to go in and be able to select the options for things like mutton patterns and whether they're screens or not, things like that,
yeah,
to make those choices. And obviously there's the ability to go back and revise that if you make kind of an initial, get it all specified, get it in the CA choice, and then get down the line with construction and want to go with a different option.
So it sounds like it's mostly windows that we're concerned, and then some lighting and exterior doors, which I have standard ones I use for that. We just haven't quite gone through them. So is that an administrative thing that needs to happen, where we would just send that to you and or Angela?
So if the commission's comfortable with everything else and with not seeing those specific details, then yes, that is something that they could approve with the condition that those be submitted to staff.
Katie, I would just like to insert that I would feel more comfortable with windows in the future, perhaps if the documentation was submitted on time for us to review. It just seems like if that's windows just seems like if that's a big part of the project, that documentation should be with the project. But I'm not.
Documentation for the windows, we just didn't highlight the selection for the specific mutton patterns, so they're in there.
Uh-huh.
It was not an intentional.
No, I don't think so. I'm just saying to staff that it just.
Okay.
I mean, I don't really. Sometimes I don't understand why that it isn't complete. The windows, just to be complete. That's all. I don't have any questions really on the house. I do have a question on the garage.
Okay.
And some of it's kind of for staff. I guess I don't know how we can talk about so many garages and still seem to be so unclear as to what we are going to approve or not approve. And so here we are, we're back again, and we're approving a 2-story garage where we've documented by sandboard maps that it was a 1-story garage. So what is the difference between documentation of a 1-story garage on a Sanborn map and a photograph of a garage that no longer exists, and then using that to make a decision? I feel very uncomfortable and inconsistent in that we're if only we had that one little photograph, then we would be saying no, no, no. Instead, we're allowing a 2-story garage that's big, I think, well, the same similar size or whatever. So is there clarification on this, or are we just saying that if it's on the Sanborn map, you get an exception? It's on the Sanborn map as a 1-story garage, but this is an exception. And if you see that, you still get to get a 2-story garage if your property abuts another property that has a 2-story garage. Is that the rule?
So I do think that has typically been more weight given to a photograph of a garage than a Sanborn map, because we can verify that photograph is accurate. I also think, and this is not a distinction that the guidelines make, this is my personal professional opinion, I think there's a difference in constructing a garage at an existing historic structure where there was a garage that was compatible with that structure versus total new construction. I mean, we have a photo of the house that was here, and we could require them, our guidelines say this, but you could say, you need to build back the house that was on this lot, and you need to build back the garage that went with that house.
Right. To me, it seems like we're being unfair to people that have the historic houses, and we're really in favor of the people that are building new houses. We're actually giving them more consideration if they find an empty lot and an old house has been lost than people that live in the historic district and want certain garages. I'm not saying certain people should get they should get 2-story garages too, but it seems like that you get a better deal if you're building a new house, and then our people that have been there for the purpose of being there in a historic district are not being allowed to. And I don't know why we I think that we should just leave out the Sanborn thing. If that's not really, you say more, we give it more a picture, more credibility. I mean, I don't know what's more credible than I don't really see the difference there. And I guess I'm a little frustrated with the garage situation. And every time it just seems like that we have a new decision on how we're going to do it. And then for a new one, that just seems totally unfair to allow somebody to even build a bigger one that's already that's in the guidelines, and then a 2-story when it was a 1-story thing. So that's just my thing on the garage on this one, not anything necessarily to do with this specific project, but we spend so much time on them and we still can't really give direction to people. It just seems like it's a new day every time we do garages. So just my rant on garages today. Sorry, Taylor.
I think that is all completely fair, and I hadn't really considered it in that instance. So perhaps that's another workshop item that we put on our list of discussion items for future reference.
I just want to feel like we're consistent.
For sure.
And I don't, if anybody on this commission can say they feel they're totally consistent in garage approval, I mean, I'd like to know what your ideas are on how you're making those decisions, because I do not feel like I'm consistent. I just look back every time and think, well, there's one person 6 months ago, they could come in and say, well, why'd you do that? I asked for something very similar and I didn't get it. And so anyway, that's the garage thing. I'm on this garage, it's fine. The design and everything is fine, in my opinion, follows the guidelines. If the applicant is going to accept the conditions that were included by the staff. Were there any conditions
like this
that you weren't able to? So I'm not picking on you necessarily for the garage thing. I'm just saying it's our guidelines for garages are difficult.
Yeah.
Are you willing to follow all the conditions that were noted in the
conditions now? I just want to make sure that happens.
Fallon, I didn't hear that on our end. Can you repeat the?
Oh, I'm looking at the conditions to make sure that they're good. I don't have them memorized, so I gotta look at it real quick.
Commissioner Zachris, did you have a question?
No, not a question, just a comment. I won't make it a rant, but I share Commissioner Meacham's frustration and concerns about the garage issues as she spelled it out.
This is Katie. To address the conditions, we did include a condition that the size of the garage be reduced to what was previously proposed. I don't know if the commission feels strongly about that, or if you think that the increase in size is minimal and is not a concern. Other conditions were that plans be revised, and I think we could revise that condition to be revised consistent with the either to not show the interior space or to be consistent with what the applicant has said is intended.
Yeah, and that's
interior floor plan.
Sorry, that floor plan that's in there was from the previous submittal and it just didn't get taken out. So the intention is for it to be kind of an open studio space to use in the office, have a bathroom in it. As far as the footprint goes, with it being over what the guidelines say, the garage immediately next door, and then also on the block, there are several others that all exceed that square footage. So we didn't feel like we were asking for anything that was outside of what's in the neighborhood.
And this is the issue.
Yep.
Because if we let this one, we're encouraging bigger garages, because we just say, well, this one's a little bigger. Now we've got 3 big ones. Well, mine can be as big or bigger. Then we've got 5 garages. Well, now we've got a case. Everybody gets 100 square feet more. I'm not, nothing against this one, Fallon. I mean, it's just, I kind of reached my limit on this, on how to be fair. I'm not, it's not that I really, one way or the other. It just, apparently we do not have enough specific guidelines on garages to easily make decisions. It seems like garages should be something that this is the rule. They come in, staff should be able to approve them. Maybe there's a little exception here or there, and we should be able to go on. But it's not that way. And it's just, I just want to be fair to everybody in the past and the future. And I don't feel like I feel like people could walk up to me and say, you all are just, one way and another. I tried this and I didn't get that. And then yesterday you gave them this. So that's my complaint on this. I'm in agreement though, if Katie on staff that they suggested the smaller size, I would say, yes, I want to keep that in the conditions.
That's exactly where I'm at, Commissioner Meacham. I would like the garage to be reduced to the size that fits within the standards and guidelines, recognizing that there are other people that have maybe overbuilt, but not knowing the circumstances of those particular projects. I feel like we have a little bit of size creep with garages and new builds in general. For instance, the front of elevation of this particular project is 7 inches taller than the house next to it. I know that when we first talked about this particular project, size was of concern. And to me, that 7 inches, while it's not that big, still represents what I think a lot of people try to do in terms of bending the rules and the guidelines by saying, well, it's only a couple feet bigger, it's only a couple inches taller. For me, I would like it to fit within the guidelines as they are noted, as it's stated, and I'd be comfortable with an approval with those particular conditions, or at least I can support an approval with those particular conditions. So that's my comments on the project. And Fallon, if you're comfortable reducing the size of the garage, I would be comfortable supporting a motion.
So I can tell you that from a design perspective, the garage footprint that's in what's allowed by the guidelines, it feels kind of arbitrary. It doesn't seem like there's any specific reasoning for that specific square footage that's allowed. And we end up in a position where we have a garage that isn't really usable in terms of depth or width for a lot of modern vehicles. And so that's why my clients, I can tell you from that perspective, that they often want it to be a little bit larger, because if they had to build it at the 450 square foot, maximum allowed, it's just not usable. And so I think that's where the disconnect is, because I understand that the Preservation Commission is trying to do a different thing, and my clients are trying to do a different thing. And so there seems to be a little bit of contention there. And that's, but from our perspective, that's really, it's not so we can say, oh, let's pull one over or anything like that. We're just trying to get as usable for the homeowner.
So,
Katie, could you please explain how we got to that? Because it was a special activity to actually determine that size.
And I would also make the comment too, that a size of vehicle is not a unique enough circumstance, in my opinion, to justify a departure from the guidelines.
And it's not in my opinion either.
This is Katie. We did several years ago, as part of a revision to the guidelines, go through an exercise. A former commission member actually put together a bunch of drawings for us with different footprints and configurations of garages to look at what was a reasonable size to accommodate 2 typical vehicles that you'd be able to get in and out, open the doors, have enough space in the garage for a moderate amount of storage, but still not be completely out of scale with our typical historic properties and how they developed. And 450 square feet was what we arrived at after going through that exercise. Now we have had people make the argument that, oh, if it was a little bit larger, then I wouldn't need to come back and ask for a shed for additional storage. And the guidelines do allow for something we always try to make clear in discussion and in the staff reports, is that the guideline doesn't say all new garages shall be 450 square feet. it allows the commission the discretion on a block where all the other garages are larger to approve a larger garage. On a block where a garage is going to be able to extend deeper into the backyard and not be visible from the right of way, not be, an impediment to other properties, to go beyond that size. That size is really intended to be a baseline of this is an appropriate size, whether you had a garage historically or not, whether your historic garage was 280 square feet, you can go up to this size, kind of no questions asked. And then there are other factors to consider in going above and beyond that 450 square feet. But that's how we got to that size.
Okay.
And I'd like to just add in, Fallon, my opinion is, excuse me, I agree with you. I built a 2-story garage.
Oh, and where? You're actually one street over, and your project is one of the ones that we looked at in terms of garage size.
Yeah, so the garage size actually meets the guidelines, but there's an additional exception that was considered for a pre-approved shed that got worked into the gross. Your neighbor to the east has a garage that's a little bit larger because I believe they made an argument to get into their storm shelter. So I think there's some flexibility, but and I agree, I can't in the actual garage portion, I can't park both my cars in the garage. So I agree with what you're saying. I think we have to stick with the guidelines and how they're read and interpreted. In the case that I think the applicant has to make is the case for that additional square footage over the 450, if that's what is requested. But I think my opinion is I was held to the 450 for the garage proper portion. I don't think it's adequate, but that's the way the guidelines read today, and I think that's what we have to stick by unless you make the case for the additional square footage.
The applicant is on the line too, my client, David, and he may have a more specific argument for it. I mean, we're not visible from the street, and there's several other on the block that are exceeding that, and it's not exceeding it by a whole lot. Like, we added an extra foot, I think, in depth and maybe in width as well. And so that was the specific want on his part, I suppose, to be able to fit a larger vehicle, because he does have a work vehicle that he has to park back there. And so it would just be, I don't know how the neighborhood's going to feel about having a work truck parked in an invisible spot. That was kind of the other reason that we hid the garage around behind the back of the building, because we knew that we were exceeding the allowable footprint. And so, we thought that would be enough to appease the commission.
Does the applicant wish to speak on this particular item?
Hi, can you all hear me?
There he is.
Hi, my name is David. Nice to meet you all. First, I want to just say I really appreciate y'all taking the time to look at all this, and looks like we're real close to getting this wrapped up. As far as the garage goes, I had a couple concerns, and there's a few reasons why I had decided I wanted to have the larger space. And ask you guys for it. First off, the 450, from what I understood, was more of a guideline, and that in previous applications, including the application to the house directly to the east of me, larger garage had been approved. That garage is 500 square feet, even a little bit larger than what I'm asking for. The abutting 2-story garage apartment that was referenced to allow me to have a garage is also at 560 square feet. So considerably larger than what I'm asking for. Also keep in mind that the space that I'm asking for is in a place that isn't going to be visible from the street. Whereas the house directly east to me, where a 500 square foot garage is, it is 20 feet off the street and right there up in the front. So, you know, that was kind of a couple things I'd taken into account. I do have I work for a utility company. I have a large truck, and I understand that, you know, the 450 square foot footprint was intended for, as specifically mentioned, most vehicles. However, my big Chevy pickup isn't going to fit in there, with it being only 450 square feet. So what that leads me to do is that vehicle is going to have to be always parked outside and always visible, you know, potentially detracting from the historic look or feel, or however you want to call it. It's going to take away a bit from the charm of the house and the street. The other thing is, I am like my neighbor. I had planned on putting a storm shelter in the garage, as that would be the only place I can put it. And there was concerns of, if a vehicle was parked inside the garage, I wouldn't be able to access the storm shelter, which, you know, could potentially create an issue, you know, if there's a major storm going on. So I, of course, talked to Greg next door and he pointed that out. So that said, that's just my case. I really hope you guys could, you know, take all these things into account. There's multiple other garages on the block that are larger than 450 square feet. In fact, every garage that I looked at, I believe, was larger than 450 square feet, with the exception of one. So that's essentially where I'm at. I hope you guys can understand and work with me on this.
Thank you. Let's see, what other questions do we have from commissioners on this particular project? And do we have any citizens that wish to be heard, neighborhood association, anybody else that wishes to weigh in?
Yes, this is Randy Ice. I'm president of Positively Paseo, Oklahoma City Housing Redevelopment Corporation. We own the fourplex right next door. We sold this lot about a year ago for this development. Obviously, we're interested, the historic home goes in. We want to make sure that the person, when we sold the lot, we told them this had to go through HP Commission. We do think there's a difference, however, between tearing down a garage and putting up a bigger garage behind an existing historic structure and a total redevelopment on a lot like this, because there has been nothing here for some time. We are not in opposition to a larger garage in the back, even a two-story garage in that particular sense. Whereas I would say in my other role as a representative from Heritage Hills, we are opposed to people ripping down one-story garages or coming in and putting in mega garages behind existing historic homes. So there's a little bit of a difference here. And again, remember, I'm speaking in a different role. I own the property next door, and normally I'm speaking for Heritage Hills. So I'll be talking for them later on in the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Randy.
This is Katie. The only other thing I would note from the conditions is just that some of the renderings that the applicant submitted do show a front walkway perpendicular to the street coming out from the front entrance, but it's not shown on the site plan. It's a pretty typical feature on the block and throughout the district. So we just wanted to include the condition that be included on the site plan if they intended to install that.
That's acceptable. I think that was just an accidental omission. I'm always trying to get these out the night before, so some things get left off on accident.
So staff has recommended approval with conditions on this particular, on the items within this particular project. For me, I would like the size of the garage to be reduced to the previously proposed size, consistent with the standards and guidelines. But again, that's what I would support. But do we have a motion from any of the other commissioners or any other comments that need to be shared?
Taylor, can you hear
Yes,
me?
Jeff.
Hey, is there a chance to speak on this?
Yes.
Just kind of responding to what you're saying, and you all have passed a lot of garages that I built for you all in this neighborhood, and I do recognize the 450 feet as a study previously, performed for this purpose of trying to preserve some kind of scale. but we all know, and I would say that the modern day car that can be parked in the garage is a better looking neighborhood. It's a safer neighborhood because cars aren't broken into. And I would encourage this commission to always tuck away a car and let the houses shine before we say, hey, this garage needs to be 50 feet smaller and this truck needs to be parked outside. We know from experience that a garage that's 20 by 22 feet is over 450 square feet. And something 20 foot wide does not accommodate door swings of any kind of car. It does not accommodate the depth of cars that are commonly 15 and 20 feet deep. So it is not a stretch at all to ask someone who's building way outside what I would consider a minimal site triangle. This is minimally invasive on the appearance of the neighborhood. A garage that's suddenly 18 inches wider or 18 inches deeper on the back of the property, where this volume and the scale of that structure can't be perceived by the public eye, it should be accommodated to these homeowners that do have trucks, that do need storage. I realize we're not trying to build McMansion garages. That's not what I'm supporting. What I'm supporting is that extra 18 inches for a client that needs that can't be perceived from the public eye, should not take away from the neighborhood. And there's language in the guidelines that says when the site triangle is minimized or the public view is minimized on these revisions, that a little leeway can be given to these structures. And I would just hope that the commission would I realize we have standards, we have guidelines, you're trying to hold the line of these things getting too big, but I think I don't think anyone's eye would catch 24 inches bigger one way or the other on this structure, and would do a great service to this homeowner.
Jeff,
Thank you, Jeff.
can you please state your name and address for the record?
Oh, sorry, Jeff Blake, and I'm with Gumerson Blake. You want my work address?
That's fine.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Katie, do we need to do anything in terms of documenting the extra conditions that the applicant was talking about, or is that just for our consideration to sway us one way or the other?
So whatever motion is made to approve needs to record as part of the motion any conditions that the commission wants attached to the approval and that the applicant has agreed to.
Okay. Yeah, I just to kind of preempt, I fall on the side of granting some latitude here. I don't know if sounds like I'm in the minority. That's kind of how I'm falling based on the items that were discussed.
I mean, I guess personally, I tend to agree, but where I struggle with is holding the line on the guidelines. I think there's a big difference between needs and wants. I think wanting additional square footage, additional, whether 18 inches or 2 feet or whatever the case may be, is significantly different than needing that. And as someone who's lived in a historic preservation district with the garages that were too narrow and too short, I do not believe that it detracts from the neighborhood to have a car parked in a driveway. I think you see it quite frequently. I think it's pretty common. So, I guess my perspective in this particular instance is that on this new build in particular, it should fall within the guidelines as stated. So that's where I am. But I think we probably need a motion one way or the other from my fellow commissioners at this time.
I would just add that, it is a choice to live here or not. You don't have to live in a historic district and go by any guidelines. There's plenty of other places in Oklahoma City to live. So to me, this whole idea of continuing to say we need this and we need that, just, before you buy the house, read the guidelines and just assume that that's what's going to happen. And I don't really understand this constant, acting like we just have to have this when there's other places you can have anything that you want.
Well, and I'd like to add too, we just the last year and a half built a 450 square foot garage. And my modern car fits comfortably in that garage. And we, by choice, have the other car on the driveway so we can have other use for the additional space. All that was a choice. If we'd wanted the dream garage that we actually talked about, we would have sold our home and moved elsewhere. I think 450 square feet works perfectly fine in our situation. And I think it does for most people as well.
This is Katie. And of course, I wrote the staff report, so I'm kind of playing my own devil's advocate here, but just to clarify again that the guidelines for the size of garages does say that, just to read it out loud, construction of a replacement garage may reasonably expand beyond the footprint of a historic 1 or 2 car garage up to a total footprint of 450 square feet or 5% of the lot, whichever is greater. Additional factors, including the level of visibility of a new garage and the size and massing of surrounding structures, may be considered. This is a proposal for a garage that is 21 feet by 24 feet. It's not a 700, 800 square foot garage. So, you know, it came to my attention because it increased in size from what was presented to the commission the first time. It did get a little bit larger, but in the grand scheme of the scale of garages that we see, this is not one of the larger ones that we have seen proposed, where we have pushed back more aggressively to say that's really out of the scale and out of the proportion of the neighborhood. So just to clarify that you all do have discretion within that guideline to approve a garage beyond 450 square feet if you feel that it's compatible with the structure, with the surrounding area, that it's minimally visible, et cetera.
Which goes back to what I was saying. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, which, you know, that's not visible from the street, and the adjacent garage next door that was built, I believe, in 2017 is even a little bit larger than this one. And also referring to the abutting garage that has an apartment that you guys mentioned last time, that one is 560 square feet. And I'm not trying to ask for like a super large, you know, luxurious garage here. I took some measurements and I was like, this is what I really need to make this work. And that's where I came up with that number. I'm not trying to ask for the moon here. This was just, you know, strictly like, you know, as far as what I believe I need for this to work. It's that number is where I came up with. You know, I wasn't trying to go super huge or anything. Again, I'm 60 square feet smaller than the one abutting.
Hey, Katie?
Yes.
Can you, with some clarity, define the original width of the old garage versus the proposed garage to give people a sense of scale? Like how far is this person, you know, asking to go bigger or smaller than the visible front elevation that was there before?
For the historic garage?
Well, you said there was photographs of another garage that was there?
So it's shown on the Sanborn map, and there's also a photo of the house from before it was demolished, and you can see just enough of the garage to tell that it was 1-story shed or hip roof with barn style doors, but there's a vehicle in front of it, and the side of the house partially obscures it, so you can't really tell from that how large it would have been. But it was a typical garage of this era. It was probably, you know, under 400 square feet.
Are you saying that you have a photograph of the garage?
Yep, there is a photograph that shows the house that was on this lot, and you can see a portion of the garage.
Will the new garage, will you see the total width of the new garage and its current placement if what is drawn now is approved from the public view?
I don't think you're going to see the garage at all.
No, you're not. It's
I have
behind.
I think that there was another question here. I think that in the application, Katie, you're saying that this garage is bigger than the one they had in the first proposal.
And that's
the first. Oh, Fallon, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that is correct. Client asked me to increase the size because we didn't once he kind of measured it out and realized like, wow, that's not going to work for me, then he asked me to make the change for this submittal. So that's it. There wasn't any, that it was just a change that was requested on the part of the client.
So my opinion in this subject has not changed. I think we've been at this for a while, and it seems like we need a motion to continue this meeting and make sure we can touch on the other items that we have for individual consideration today. Do we have a commissioner?
This
that is willing to
applicant is
make-
out of continuances. This has been on the commission agenda 2 previous times. So we have to either approve or deny this application at this point.
Thank you, Katie. So do
So
we have a,
I'll make a motion to approve item 1, install fence. Approve item 3. Katie, you might have to help me with some language here. I guess it'd be approve item 3 as submitted. And is those the only
Item 1
items?
is the dwelling, just to make sure we're
Okay.
looking at the same thing.
Maybe
Item
I'm
one
looking.
fence, item 2 was the dwelling, and item 3 was the garage.
Yeah, so I guess the motion would be the motion to approve all items as noted in the report, with the exception of item 2 is construct the garage, correct?
So 3 was,
Correct.
or was, I thought 2 was construction.
And the exception being item 2 to be constructed as submitted, not as noted in the staff report. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure this is Katie. I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're recommending or what your motion is in regard to the garage.
My recommendation or my motion is to approve the garage with the larger footprint as submitted.
To approve it as submitted currently.
Correct.
okay. Do we have a second?
Katie, this is Mark Michaud. Can I do this as approved with conditions?
Correct.
Okay. So who made the motion?
Commissioner Remy made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Milner.
Commissioner Milner seconds. All in favor, please vote in prime gov.
Mr. Remy. Mr. Remy, this is Angela.
Yes.
And your vote was to approve all items as noted in the staff report, except for item 2 to be approved as submitted with conditions. Is that accurate?
Let me just make sure I'm not. The conditions were the size of the garage being reduced, as noted in the staff report. To revise the floor plan, documentation of materials. I have a porch back up there. So I think that the correct way to do that motion is with conditions. But how do I want to say that item condition 1 would allow to
I would
be
say striking condition 1.
striking condition 1?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Has everyone voted? I'm going to close the vote.
Thank you. I did not see what happened with the vote on that particular item, Mark.
It was 2 in favor and 3 against.
Okay. I don't know that I've ever seen that. So where do we go next from a motion perspective?
This is Katie. It sounds like everyone is fine with everything except the garage. I think we could call for a motion to approve all the remaining items. And then either if, further discussion with the applicant on the garage or deny the garage at this point, and they would have to come back with a new application for that.
Yeah, I'm talking to my client really quick.
I'm sorry, Fallon, what did you say?
I was conferring with my client really fast just to see what he wants to do, because I don't know that we want to go back through all of this to get a couple more square feet if the commission is not going to be okay with it. So, if we could just accept all of the conditions provided, then I'm trying to talk to him really quick and find out if that's what he wants to do.
I was just kind of curious on the 3 people who opposed it. I understood kind of some of the arguments that you had made previously, but concerning that, all these mitigating factors are on the block I'm in. I just am kind of surprised that there's not more reception here. Would one of you, or maybe all of you, mind elaborating as to what the logic is?
To me, the logic is as been stated previously. There are guidelines and standards that we must abide by, and a desire to have a garage big enough for a large car, to me, is not something that we would consider as a unique enough circumstance for a departure from the guidelines as currently stated. So that's where I'm at with it. Again, I don't want to speak for the other commissioners, but that's my position.
My position is in concurrence with Commissioner Fudge. I think we've discussed this at length today, and my position is already on the record.
And as the garage next door that's very visible to the street being 500 square feet, even a little larger.
That has no bearing on this decision for me.
Okay.
Nor for me.
So for me though, I had to reduce the size of my house considerably because of that exact factor after our last meeting. So I don't understand how it works one way, but then not another. I'm just trying, I'm not trying to get, anything. I'm just trying to understand why do I have to reduce my house, considerably in size on one side, but then when there's all these other larger garages abutting my house or abutting my property, I can't have a similar size garage when I really need one, not only for a storm shelter, but to fit my truck in.
I think all of that is, I think we've heard the arguments for. I think we've responded to each one of those particular items. And I really feel like it's time for a motion and to continue on with the meeting today.
Okay. Can you give me just a second to talk to Fallon?
Yes.
Taylor, just for a point of clarification, so I can understand this better going forward, the 450 is not hard and fast. It's been a study and a recommendation in the past to go plus 50 feet or 100 feet. I mean, that you guys can totally approve that if you want to, right? I mean, the guidelines give you the flex and allow you to do that, right?
Correct. But Jeff, I have not heard any compelling arguments for me to say that this garage needs to be bigger than the guidelines currently recommend. And that is where I'm at with this.
What about the side triangle though, being out of line of sight and not having an impact, like not affecting the historic fabric of the neighborhood whatsoever? Isn't that? I mean, that's why they talk about the side triangle in the guidelines.
Sure. I tend to to think that that is an excellent argument, but it does not sway my opinion.
All right, I respect it.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay, so I think what we're gonna do is we are gonna withdraw the garage at this time, and we'll just put forth a completely separate application for it later. Maybe when more of the commission is present. So for now, I suppose what we'll do is just approve the house, if we can do that with the exceptions that have been listed in the staff report. We're okay with those. And the fence. So I suppose item 1, which was or item 4, install fence. Item 1, construct dwelling. We would like to go forth with that, and then just withdraw the garage portion on the application.
So Katie, does that mean we need to deny the garage portion and approve all of the others?
If they've withdrawn that, we can take that withdrawal, and it will just, we don't need any further action on item number 2. So it'll just be recorded as withdrawn by the applicant.
Okay. So does that mean we need another motion for the other items?
Yes, we'll need a new motion for items 1, 3, 4, and 5. And actually 5 is withdrawn as well because they're not requesting a variance at this time. So just 1, 3, and 4.
Perfect. Do we have a motion for those items?
I'll make a motion to approve items 1, 3, and 4 with conditions as noted in the staff report.
Moved by Commissioner Remy. Do we have a second?
I'll second Commissioner Zacharitz.
Seconded by Commissioner Zacharitz. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
Yeah, I'm not. You can sit over there. You're fine. Oh.
Commissioner Zacharitz, can you vote, please?
I don't have voting buttons showing.
I'll vote for you, yay, right?
Yay.
Okay, that item is passed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 2, HPCA 2100040 at 524 Northwest 16th Street.
This is located in Mestet Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Garrett Moore for certificate of appropriateness to item 2, construct garage elective. This is an application to, again, construct a garage. There was a 1-story, approximately 360 square foot garage there previously. The commission recently approved the demolition of that structure. You can see it in the photo shown on the PowerPoint here. The applicant has proposed a 2-story garage in its place at a larger footprint. Staff has recommended a continuance of this to allow for revisions for a garage more compatible and consistent with the historic garage.
Okay, is the applicant present?
Yes, this is Eden Moore, and my husband Garrett is with me as well.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Eden. Hello, Garrett. Let's see. So staff has recommended a continuance on this particular item. It sounds like we were missing some information, needed a little bit more detail. And I think there was a note about emulating the existing structure and placement of windows.
Yes, we did speak about the windows with Angela, and we are totally fine adding more windows. We asked in this request for a 1.5 stories. We do abut a 1.5 stories. And just for privacy of our neighbors who both have pools, we figured to that we would leave out some windows on 2 sides, but like I said, if that is something that needs to be added for historical reasons, then we are fine adding those. And we've also talked to our neighbors and they are fine with that as well.
Okay. I hate to even ask this question, but how big is the garage and is oversized?
So it is currently, we added 3 feet onto the back of what we wanted, just in order to put the stairs inside of the structure. We felt like this would, again, add more privacy for our neighbors and just be more aesthetically pleasing. So currently it's 675, 5% of our lot is 680.
See, let's see, are there any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project?
We did not receive, I don't believe we received any comments from neighbors or from the neighborhood association on this application. And just to be clear, yes, it is below the 5% of the lot that is allowed, but is proposed at 23 feet, 10.5 inches tall. So it is a full 2-story garage.
Okay.
And Katie, the prior garage that was recently demolished was a 1-story garage, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, what other questions do we have from commissioners on this particular project?
I mean, this seems to go back to the rule of if we know what the garage was, then it has to be a 1-story.
We just have the last 2 months have taken up a proposed 2-story garage where we had photographic evidence of a historic 1-story garage, and I believe they're going to be heard for the last time next month. The same issue, same block. I don't know why we would take a different position with this applicant.
Any other questions from commissioners or any other comments from the applicant?
I mean, we just spent an hour talking about garages, so no need to get too deep into this, but kind of second what was said earlier. Just some more clarity, when you do have abutting garages, we have 2 of them. There's, I believe, 4 or 5 1.5 or 2-story garages on our block. We thought we were proposing a 1.5 stories. I understand it sounds like because of the height, it's not. So if there is a way to scale back in order to just have that, loft footprint for the 1.5 stories, willing to do so. We're willing to work. This is our first time proposing a garage. We tried to look at the guidelines, look back at other applicants, and just propose something that makes sense. But we're willing to work and fix windows and height and sizing, as needed. So interested to hear more feedback.
To me, it sounds like then a continuance might be required for this particular item, sort of as staff has recommended. Personally, I think it probably should be reduced in size, just like the conversation we had previously. And if there is specific items that staff would like to see in terms of the fenestration and window placement, I would love it if you could work with them to get that taken care of.
As far as size goes, we went with 5% of our lot because that's what we were told, was kind of this guidelines. How do we kind of go about choosing based on the guidelines, how do we go about choosing a smaller square foot? What do we just go kind of between the 450 and the 680? What does that look like?
It sounds to me like the square footage is okay. It's the height of the structure that is at issue. Katie, okay. Is that correct?
That's correct. The guidelines allow for an increase in the size of the footprint, but it would be the height going to a full 2-story that the guidelines would not appear to support. And there is an actual definition in the code of a 1.5 story, and staff can assist with that, in follow-up conversations after the meeting on what that would look like, and if there's something that could be technically 1.5 story but still be compatible.
Sure. What can we hear some opinions on a 1.5 stories before we just start the whole architecture process again, just to make sure that this is something that is one, within guidelines, and two, just curious to hear feedback.
So let me jump in, just because I think it's a disservice to you to kick the can down the road another month and then come back and meet a denial. But I think what the timing's sort of poor, that there's a current case that's very similar, and the guidelines, the way they're written, I believe, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's construct of a replacement garage shall approximate the original configuration, form, massing, style, placement, and detail of former garage as described by photographic or other documentation. So the other project that's, unless there's some new development, it looks like it's heading towards a denial because it's not meeting that requirement in the guidelines. So I'd hate for you to spend time and money going down a road that doesn't meet 4.5.
Is this just, you're saying would probably go towards a no because we're comparing it to another project that is going to be denied? I know there are definitely other garages in the neighborhood that, you've known what was there and have been approved. So if there's another project that we are being compared to, that would be the reason of denial? Is that?
No, it's not that you're being compared to another project. It's that another project brought this specific requirement and the guidelines to the forefront. So it's fresh on everyone's mind, and the requirement appears to be pretty straightforward. Not necessarily that I agree with the requirement, but it is a shall provide. So it just seems like our hands are a little bit tied here based on the way the guidelines are currently written.
For your reference, it's 4.4.5.
Okay. Yeah, I see it right here. Where does it talk about abutting footprints, and how does that compare with this guideline?
Katie, is that something that you could answer?
Yep, so the language about abutting garages has to do with 2-story garages.
Okay.
And let me find it. When no photographic or other documentation is available, a replacement garage may be 2 stories tall when the original or historic garage was 2 stories, or if located in a block where 2-story or 1.5-story garages are dominant or occur on abutting property. New garages in blocks that contain only 1-story garages shall be 1 story. And that's 4.4.12.
Okay.
So that creates an allowance for a 2-story garage when we don't have documentation of the historic garage, but indicates that when we do know what the historic garage was, it should be 1 story if the historic garage was 1 story. Now on 4.4.13, it says in locations where 2-story garages are not allowed, a garage may be 1.5 stories as defined in the municipal code, so long as the design and height approximate the massing of a previous historic garage at the property or adjacent 1-story garages if no documentation is available. So there is an allowance for a garage getting moderately taller, but it would need to retain comparable massing to what you had historically.
Sure. Okay.
And I believe I discussed with the applicant at 1.2 that there, a hip roof can be challenging to work with as far as, getting usable attic space. One thing they could consider is making it a hip at the front and a gable on the rear that wouldn't be visible from the street. to provide a little more usable space in the attic.
And Garrett, would you be comfortable with something like that and going in that direction?
Yeah, I think so.
To me, if the garage can be 1.5 stories, I'm pretty comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with 2 stories.
Okay.
So that's where I would be. But it sounds like, again, it sounds like a continuance is still necessary in this particular instance for some updated designs and plans.
That sounds good.
We can continue this to July 7th, in which case we would need new documentation by Tuesday of next week, June 8th, or we can continue it to the August meeting, which is August 4th. And we need new documentation by approximately July 6th.
I think we will be able to get some documentation to you by next week. As if I'm hearing this correctly, the 1.5 is what we're going to go for, possibly with the hip roof in the front and the gable in the back. Does that sound more appealing? I totally understand. I do not want this structure to be astronomically tall either.
Sure. So I've also neglected or failed to ask if there are any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project, or does the neighborhood association wish to speak on this particular project? Okay. Let's see. Do we have a particular motion from any of our commissioners?
I make a motion to continue this to the July, which one?
7th.
July 7th?
July 7th meeting.
Do we have a second?
Commissioner Ramey seconds.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Remy. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
Here we go. Katie, this was just a little bit slow coming up. So Meacham and Remy, okay.
Okay, we will continue this to the July 7th meeting. All information will need to be sent over to staff by June 8th. And we will take a look at what is sent.
Awesome. Thank you, commissioners.
Yes, thank you
guys.
so much.
Okay, moving on to item number 3, HPCA 21-00044 at 517 Northwest 19th Street.
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Fallon Brooks, Jollybird Design LLC for Jake Scheffler for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace windows elective, 2, construct addition and close window elective, and 3, construct. This says 2-story garage. It actually is a 1-story garage in the staff report, and we didn't catch that on the agenda. 1-story garage with added paving elective. This is, I think, the first time that the commission has seen this application. The staff report recommended continuance on the windows to acquire better documentation of remaining historic windows in comparison to proposed replacement windows. We recommended approval of the addition as meeting relevant standards and guidelines for additions and materials and size and all that. And we recommended approval for construction of the 1-story garage. I will note that the footprint does exceed the 450 square feet by 12 feet in order to accommodate 2 separate overhead garage doors, but that it is not visible from the public right-of-way. So we did recommend approval in this instance.
Thank you. Is the applicant present?
Hello again.
Hi, Fallon.
Are you guys sick of me yet?
No, absolutely not. You're great. So I go back to the same thing we've been talking about the last 2 times. The footprint exceeds 450 square feet, so accommodate for 2 separate doors. Is there any way to do this with 1 door and not exceed that square footage? And I guess I keep going back to it. This is the main challenge that I have, is that everybody wants to expand their project by just a little bit. And I think we're having a lot of scope creep here.
Yeah, that's a question for the client, if he's amenable to that. I'm not sure if he has logged back in. Sorry, so I sent him a message. I'm not sure. I think he's having trouble getting in there. So I'll address the windows really quick while I'm waiting on an answer from him.
Perfect.
So on the windows, we provided documentation for some proposed windows. The ones that you see in the image right there are vinyl. And what we've proposed, so the problem is that with replacing those historic windows, if you look, I don't know if there are images of the other windows on the front and other sides of the house, but they are, I think, like 16 or 20 separate divided lights. Yeah, so that one is 20 divided lights over one. And with a lot of modern windows, you can't really get, all of the different buttons in there like that. You end up either having the lights between the glass, or you've got the fake ones that are kind of on the front. And so we've had a real hard time finding a window manufacturer that can do that without making us just completely custom windows, which would be absolutely cost prohibitive. I mean, we're going from maybe a few $100s per window to over $1,000 per window, and it kind of gets real dicey and doesn't make sense financially. So, there's a house across the street that was previously had gone before the commission, and they used some windows that had an almost identical mutton pattern. And we spec'd that window hoping that that would be sufficient. So that's kind of where we're at on it. We're just having a real hard time finding a replacement window that can match and also be, reasonable.
Fallon, are you wanting to replace the windows on the front of the house that are existing?
We're only wanting to replace, the only window on the front of the house that we want to replace is that vinyl window that's on the porch. And then the other vinyl windows that are on the west side as well. The rest of the house has the original historic windows in place, and we want to leave those.
Okay. I mean, I would suggest on the front, okay, so these are not original here. On the front to just have a single pane window built to match those front ones. That would be my suggestion on the front. And then maybe on the sides and the back, then take a similar, because I understand your situation there, but if you had matching ones on the front and then the sides and the backs similar, I'm not, is there a picture of the one that you all are wanting to propose that's across the street?
It should be in our packet, and there's an image of that window in the packet, and you can see that they look really similar. And I think if we could put those on the side, then it wouldn't be really noticeable that they're not the same. Now, the one in the front, that might be one of those things where maybe we do a picture window or something.
Personally, I would support, doing something, similar to the same really as the other two front windows.
And okay, I thought you were saying do a single, like a single.
No, it just do you can do that window, but just make it, and there's some different ways that you could do that, because do you think that the window on the left is the original size?
I seriously doubt it. Yeah.
Oh, you doubt that it is?
I doubt that that's the same size as what would have been there originally.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the other. I mean, sometimes a bigger window would just have like a row of 2 at the top and then be a single at the bottom. Mm-hmm. That would be you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a picture window. There'd be maybe 2 rows of the little squares at the top, and then the rest would be maybe that over a decorative one on the top, and then just a single on the bottom. I mean, I think that you know, I would be amenable to a lot of different things if maybe just looking around in the neighborhood and seeing, you know, what's there. It looks oversized.
It's quite large, yeah. And what we were proposing, I don't know if you've seen the packet that was submitted.
I'm trying.
That window that's in there is exactly what we want to put in there. That's we felt like that was probably the closest we were going to get to the existing.
In the staff report, Katie, did you say that there needs to be more window? I'm confused.
Well, Fallon, do you have the packet open in front of you? Can you tell us what page you're referring to?
Yeah, hang on a second.
I think the one across the
We
street
have
is on
quite a
page
few window
29.
specifications, and we didn't feel like we had adequate comparison of this is what's going with this window and this is how they match. Or
okay, I see what you're saying.
Okay, I see 20 on page 29. What is that? Is that one of your windows?
Yeah, so that's the window in the house across the street, and that's
Okay.
exactly the window that we would like to specify. It's a different size, obviously, but that was the closest that we felt we could get to all of those divided muntins without it having to be like an entirely custom built.
When you say closest size, are you referring to the mutton pattern on the upper?
Yeah, the mutton pattern, because that's what's causing so many issues on this one. It's just not easily available. Most manufacturers don't have mutton patterns that are that
Right.
tight.
I would be amenable to that if staff says that it's an acceptable window.
And Fallon, are you, the elevation on page 11, is that drawn accurately, that window applied to this proportion?
Yeah, I kind of made it a little bit shorter. I think I don't have the CAD file open, and I didn't label it. So it looks like it's probably a 4050. And I think the existing window is like a 40, maybe 6.
So it looks like you're bringing the sill up and filling it in underneath.
To be in line with the others, because it just visually makes more sense, and
I agree.
Doesn't feel so out of place. So that's why I did it that way.
I think this is a big improvement to the vinyl. I know that's not, I mean, that's what we're comparing it to, not the original historic. Do we even know what that historic window was, or are we guessing and extrapolating from the?
We're presuming that it's similar to the rest of the windows in the house, but we don't really have any reference for it. Those windows were put in, I think, by the previous homeowner. Yeah, we don't really have any reference for it.
this is Katie. So the option for the windows that's selected in the attachment is a grill between the glass window, where you've got glass on the exterior and a faux grid in between the panes of glass, which our guidelines don't support. So I think that's the issue, is what's the actual muntin configuration and whether it meets the guidelines for a replacement window in a historic structure.
So you've got a simulated divided light proposed?
Yes. Okay. Sorry, that wasn't clear.
Oh, that's okay.
So Katie, are you saying that the one across the street is not an acceptable window?
Well, the one across the street, it looks to me like it's a simulated divided light where the muntins are on the exterior of the glass and potentially on the interior as well. But when you look at the Geldwin product information that we've been provided and the option that's circled, it's not even a simulated divided light product like we would allow on new construction.
Oh, it's the grill
muntin on the exterior of the window.
That's my mistake. There's 2 on there. I just didn't select the right one. So that's the grill between glass, and then there's the SDL one. So on page 34, if you see what I circled in red, if you go right above that, you see the ones where they're simulated divided lights, and that's I made the mistake of circling the wrong one. We didn't. Very last minute.
So we typically approve the simulated divided light options that you see at the top of that page at additions and on new construction. We have in a couple of instances, and it's been cases like this where we had a really unusual muntin pattern and a muntin pattern with very tiny panes of glass, where when you go to a true divided light, the muntins are going to just there will be no space for glass left because the muttons get so much thicker. We have in a few instances approved this type of simulated divided light option. I think we would still want to pin down the dimensions of the window and the proportions of the panes of glass to make sure that you're getting a comparable proportion to, just what those are going to look like together.
So the muttons and the existing windows on the rest of the house are 5/8, and there's a 5/8 inch option for the simulated divided light. Now, as far as size goes, I don't know if it's something we can go with and say, here's the size that we're going to put in. What we've put in the elevation is a 4050, and then what's on the sides are they're all similar to what's existing on the house. I don't know if you need more documentation for what's existing, but that was the idea for it. And I just, my concern is we don't want to have to go back before commission for windows. I don't know if that's something that we can say, here's what we want to do, and provide you the documentation and have it approved administratively if the commission is cool with it, as long as we, meet those, do what we're saying we're going to do.
Katie, are you saying that the one with the 5/8 under that option, the very first one, would be acceptable if the panes of glass were similar in size at the top?
So the 5/8 with the grill between the glass and with the simulated divided light at the top of the page is not what the guidelines allow in the historic structure. But we have approved those with unique circumstances in the past when we've had very kind of complex windows like this. And I think this is an appropriate location for a product like that to get a better replication of the historic window.
I mean, I would be for approval of that if the window on the front of the house is an exact replica of the other windows on the front of the house. That this window could be used on the sides. In the rear, it's just 1/1, so there's none in the back. So it just would be for the sides of the house with an exact replica on the front.
When you say exact replica, do you mean
To the other ones that are on the front?
do you mean a single pane?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. That would be
I would support that as well.
Fallon, would that work?
Jake, would that work? Do the sides and then do something a little more custom to match on the front. He might be muted. I'm amenable to that. Let me see if I can get a hold real fast. I don't think that he's
So just so I'm clear, because I think if I'm understanding this correctly, with the simulated divided light 5/8 bead, you can get an exact match. It just isn't a single pane option.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what commissioners are opposed to.
It's not, what Katie's saying is that it's not generally allowed, that particular window, I think that's what she's saying, is it's not generally allowed as a substitute for historic windows. But in this case, it is because of the unusual size of the upper sash.
Right, that's what I heard, but then I think what you were saying is that you want a custom.
A custom window for the front only.
And
right, but the simulated divided light, Katie's saying there's precedent to
do it on the side.
That.
On the side.
He's saying on the front is what I heard.
Oh, I wouldn't vote for that.
So that's what we were asking for, the front and the west side. But if they'll allow it on the west side, and then we have to either go with something custom on the front, or a different mutton pattern that's complementary to what's existing.
It would not be a double pane. What I'm saying is I would be proposing an exact, so I'll put this clear, an exact match to the front windows in the configuration that you have drawn on your current front elevation. That would be my motion if I was making a motion for the.
My only concern with that, and this is why we proposed, and it should have been the simulated divided lights and not the grill between glass. That was my mistake. But we cannot find them with the individual panes. They would have to be the simulated divided lights, and the guidelines do not allow for that. And I guess what Katie's saying is that in some instances, they have been approved in the past where you have a similar situation, and that's kind of what we're asking for.
And I'm saying that I would approve them on the sides of the house, but that a custom window to match your front windows would be my motion.
Okay, and I think he's amenable to that. He just texted me and said, I can't unmute. So if we can get the ones on the west side with what we've provided, then we're happy with that for now. And we can figure out what to do with the front window and come back for it. We're okay with that.
I would like to include the front window on my motion. Katie, is it acceptable to you to do it that way?
Okay, say it one more time. Sorry, I was trying to get the
Okay, my motion would be to replicate the existing front elevation windows, historic windows on the left side with the size as indicated on the elevation submitted with the proposal, and to use the whatever brand we're talking about with the 5/8 inch bead for the remaining side windows that have to be replaced.
Yes, I think that works.
Okay. So Fallon, are you comfortable with that direction on the windows?
I believe so, but I just want to clarify. I'm so sorry. So we would be okay with the simulated divided lights on the west side, but we would need to do a custom window for the front to match what's existing, correct?
That is what I'm understanding.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
Is that correct?
And Katie, this is in the weeds, but I want to clarify. I think the picture that you showed across the street is the putty profile, I believe, not the bead profile. So just, I don't know if that matters to staff, if they're going to approve that administratively, but just make sure the appropriate profile is selected.
Fallon, did you just include the one across the street as an example, but it's not the exact one that we're looking at on the
So
specifications?
It is the same window. It's just that the options get real confusing. So I think.
Yeah, and I guess my question is, what is the right profile? Because we've been saying bead.
I'm just looking at that one page.
And I can't tell from the photos of the existing house what that profile, that matching profile.
This is Katie. We do have the existing window, so we can confirm that it's a match with, or as close a match as we can get with the applicant as part of assembling the CA.
Okay.
I think we do need to, if we are going to motion for an approval to allow those windows, there does need to be a unique circumstance identified, since the guidelines typically don't support that product on the historic structure.
Okay.
We also have item number 2, constructing the addition. It doesn't look like there's anything of note there. I'm comfortable with that. Item 3 is the construction of the 1-story garage that appears to exceed the maximum square footage currently. So I think that is likely our next discussion point.
So sorry, guys. On that one, we can go to 450 if that's, we're okay with that on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, he just said 450 is fine.
Okay, do we have Do we have any other questions from commissioners? And I also, again, need to check in any citizens that wish to be heard or anybody from the neighborhood association that wishes to speak on this item.
Actually, do you have a really quick question? Jake just brought this up. So we're removing a window from the back of the house, and it is, I believe it's the same size as one of those other windows. It's not as large as what's there now. Could we just move that to the front elevation of the house? It matches the same window.
Is it?
It's not as
original?
large. The dimensions are different, but it's the same dimension as the bedroom windows that are on the east side over there that you see in the front elevation picture. So it would match those, and we don't really know what was there originally, because I'm pretty sure that that window that's on the front porch now is larger than what would have originally been there.
Is that the last remaining, is that the only other historic window left?
That's being removed or closed up, yes.
Oh, okay. I mean, I would go for that.
I like that. I think that would be a good solution.
I would be
So you
supportive as well.
I'm fine
Because
with
that
that.
window is going to be a part of the,
The addition, I think there's a doorway going in right
Right.
where that is, so, yeah.
okay.
I actually like that plan a lot. Okay, do we have a motion?
I have a motion. Are we ready?
We're ready.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 21-00044, item 1, to replace the windows as noted in the, to replace the windows as requested, with the unique circumstance that the windows on either side of the building can be replaced with the windows that the applicant is proposing and will submit to staff for final approval. And that the front window, which does not appear to be historic nor a historic size, be replaced with a original historic window from the rear and to be used on the front facade. That would be item 1. To approve item 2 with the specific findings as noted by the staff in the staff report, and to approve item 3 with the specific findings in the staff report with altering item 2 to be that the footprint of the garage to be 450 square feet. Does that cover everything?
So
With a single
that would
overhead
be-
door.
I'm sorry.
With a single overhead door, we show 2 on the elevation. I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Yes, if you want, with a single overhead door.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Just to confirm, that's a condition. The condition is that it be reduced to 450 square feet and the garage door changed to a single door.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Meacham. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Ramey, second.
And Zacharitz.
We'll have Commissioner Zacharitz second this one. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. Okay, the motion's passed. We're excited to see this project. Thanks, Fallon.
Bye.
Moving on to item number HPCA 21-00055 at 706 Northwest 24th Street.
This is located in Paseo, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Brent Bowles for certificate of appropriateness to 2, replace bathroom window, elective, 4, replace front door, elective, and 6, replace front porch railing, elective. There are no garages proposed on this application. The staff report, the commission has seen this previously. The staff report recommends approval for replacement of the porch railing and the front door, and approval with conditions for the replacement of the bathroom window, addressing the window being clear glass. The applicant has proposed a film to be applied on the interior of the window that would be removable.
Thank you, Katie. Is the applicant present? Mr. Bowles, are you there? Are there any other citizens that wish to be heard, or anybody from the neighborhood association?
This is Mark Zitzow. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I was asked to be unmuted, but this isn't my case. So I don't know if it was accidentally clicked to unmute me instead of the applicant.
Do you wish to speak on this particular project?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from the neighborhood association that wishes to comment?
This is Katie. I do not see the applicant logged in to the call at this time, so he may not have been able to join.
Katie, did he come back with a proposal for a wood door? I believe that was one of the challenges that we had before.
Yes, I believe we do have a wood door proposed.
Okay, and then he was going to change the spacing on that front porch. Sounds like he was agreeable to that. And
Yes.
then the last item to me was the film on the window. To me, that seems very, very temporary. It can be taken down. It's on the interior of the house. I'm comfortable with the film. If my fellow commissioners are as well.
Yes,
I'm
I would make,
comfortable with it.
yeah, I would make a motion to approve HPCA 21-00055 with the specific findings and conditions as noted by the staff in the staff report.
We have a second.
Commissioner Ramey seconds.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Remy. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. And we needed an easy one. This is great. Okay, that item is passed. Mr. Bowles will be excited. Moving on to HPCA 21-00061 at 436 Northwest 30th Street.
This is located in Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by John Robison and Associates for Mumtaz Khan for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct parking lot elective, 2, install driveway elective, 3, construct ramp and landing at rear elective, 4, construct accessible ramp at front entrance elective, 5, install raised planters at front elective, 6, install landscape beds at driveway and parking lot elective, 7, install trash enclosure elective, and 8, install fence elective. This is a property that the commission has seen a couple of different times. This is a new application. They have pretty dramatically revised what was initially proposed for a driveway and parking lot at this property. This is a property that was originally a dwelling. It is zone C3 for commercial, and they intend to make it a space that could be used for events. So they are proposing to add parking in the back where there currently is just landscaping, and to remove the concrete in the front where they currently have parking. They propose to extend the driveway where they currently have an approach but no driveway down the side to create parking. Removal of the staircase that you see on the side of the structure was approved previously by the commission. They've also been approved to install a ramp at the rear of the structure. A revision to, or a new design for that ramp on the rear of the structure is included as part of this application, but they are proposing landscape bed in the front with handicap ramp to get to that front entrance, and then parking in the back, landscaping in the front. We have recommended approval of all items with some conditions for some materials and dimensions to be specified that were not called out in the documentation. And with the understanding that because this does involve parking for a commercial property and sidewalks and ramps and things that are potentially in the public right of way, that they may need to come back with some revisions as they go through the building permit process to address some of those things.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present?
Yes, we're present. This is Jocelyn Lupkin. I'm with Robison and Associates.
Perfect. Can you tell us a little bit about your project and specifically commenting on some of the items as noted in the staff report?
Some of the items that we worked on with staff were to bring back the more traditional front yard aspect of that neighborhood. This whole block is zone commercial, but this property was the only one that was totally paved on the front elevation. So we took staff recommendations and eliminated the existing parking and did our best to try and get accessible entrances at both the front and the back of the building.
I like
And-
the direction that's heading. How about some of the other items?
Excuse me?
I said, I like the direction that's heading. How about some of the other items?
Well, some of the other, we're eliminating the existing step and ramp that are on the east side. They're not really required anymore, and we're putting in a driveway to some parking in the rear. We do need parking because it is a commercial building, and not having any parking at all would definitely be a detriment to the way the building would function. And there will be an accessible walk on the west side between this building and the building next door. And really no other changes, no changes are planned to the building itself at this time. This is all about site work and accessibility.
Do we have any questions from commissioners at this point in time?
Katie, do we have, where does our responsibility stop in terms of parking and the city's pickup in terms of, does this work?
As far as determining how much parking they need, is that what you mean?
In terms of, I don't think that the proposed site plan works. I think spaces 1 and 2 won't be able to back out.
So the way these kinds of things typically work is that specific details like that and kind of building code issues are the purview of plan review development services. And if there are elements of their site plan with the parking, the dimensions of the spaces or the configuration of the spaces, then they would come back to us if they needed to revise something. Typically, when we've already approved an area to be a parking lot, that would just be an administrative revision. But that's going to all go through the rest of the process for plan review to make sure that they meet all the various applicable requirements.
And so they'll look at detention, stormwater runoff, and all that. We don't need to worry about any of those issues.
Yep, those are not under the commission's purview.
Okay, just checking.
Katie, I think driveways and parking lots do speak towards draining towards the street. Is that accurate?
We do have language in the guidelines that talks about water needing to drain away from other structures and sites and to the street. So that is, I don't think we included that as a condition, but that's certainly something that you could note as part of an approval.
See, do we have any other citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project, or anyone from the neighborhood that wishes to speak?
We did not get any comments from neighbors or from any neighborhood association on this project.
So staff has recommended approval with conditions on this particular project. Do we have any other questions from commissioners or a motion?
I make a motion to approve HPCA 21-00061 with the specific findings as noted by the staff report and the conditions noted by staff.
Commissioner Zacharitz will second.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Zacharitz. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. Okay, that item is passed. Thank you for the comments. We will move on to item number 6, HPCA 21-00062 at 925 Northwest 17th Street.
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Jeff Blake, Gumerson Blake for John Stavros for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish garage and carport elective, 2, construct garage elective, 3, install new driveway elective, 4, install new concrete stairs at rear elective, and 5, replace fence elective. This is a garage that was damaged in the recent ice storm that staff did recommend approval of the demolition, that it was an imminent threat to public health and safety based on the condition, as well as for the carport. And we've recommended approval for all other items as meeting applicable guidelines and standards, with a condition on the driveway that the paving be the appropriate color and finish as specified in the guidelines, and that the approach not exceed a 5-foot radius at the curb where the approach comes in from the street.
Thank you, Katie. Is the applicant present, or Jeff, would you wish to speak on this particular project?
Sure, just to kind of set it up. The garage is just hanging on. It's barely standing. A really big log fell on it. And so we've retracted the garage off of the closed alley behind it to put it back in the bounds of the property. It's probably smaller than it currently is as it sits because of that. Same materials, same roof style, same height. So nothing really radical here, just a garage.
Not bigger than allowed, huh?
Not bigger than allowed, my friend.
Thank you. Perfect. Like Katie noted, staff recommended approval of specific conditions on the radius and finish. I'm sure you're comfortable with those particular items. Jeffrey, there?
Oh, I'm sorry. For me, I thought you were talking to Katie. I'm sorry. What did you say?
So staff recommended approval with specific conditions on the radius of the driveway and the finish of the concrete. Are you comfortable with those particular items?
Yes, but I would like to say, even as these things have passed, previously, and I've gotten the go ahead with concrete color and finish, I get lots of pushback from neighbors, clients alike, defining what is that color and what is that finish. It still seems to be very subjective. I'm left as a contractor with that kind of undefined. And so is there a stricter standard of concrete color that is defined in the guidelines to keep me out of trouble?
Katie, is that something that you could comment on?
So the intent of the guidelines is that we not have bright, shining white concrete that looks brand new, but that it have a duller, warm gray tone to it that looks like aged concrete. Okay. We have found that tinting the concrete typically is not very successful because that tint doesn't age and weather the same as regular old concrete. There are several more successful methods that we've seen, like using an acid wash to age the concrete, other products to kind of wash over the surface of the concrete to give it that aged finish. And I think Angela has some resources on that we can get you after the meeting.
And specifically the rub is, it's grayish, it's pinkish, it's orangish. It's like all of those take the color out, the white out of the picture. But it's, if you drive the neighborhood and as we roll these things out, it seems to be, even though you guys have approved it, this is just commentary, it seems to be disputed what coloring of concrete is. So just, I don't know.
Yes, it's something that is a struggle. And I think we also have concrete that gets put in as part of public improvements as a kind of a maintenance effort. And that doesn't always match. So yes, we recognize that it's a challenge.
Otherwise, I mean, as stated, the request here for concrete are understood, and I agree.
Perfect. Let's see, any other citizens that wish to be heard, or anybody from the neighborhood association that wishes to speak on this particular project? Okay, do we have a motion, or I'm sorry, didn't even ask, do we have any other questions from commissioners? And if not, do we have a motion? Is there any commissioner that wishes to make a motion on this particular project?
Commissioner Ramey, I'll make a motion to approve HPCA-21-00062 with conditions as noted in the staff report.
I'll second. Commissioner
Commissioner
Zacharitz.
Remy, seconded by Commissioner Zacharitz. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that's passed. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, everyone.
Moving on to item number 7, HPCA 21-00074 at 126 Northwest 21st Street.
This is located in Heritage Hills East, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Nate Grieving, Oki Solar, for Roger Adams for certificate of appropriateness to 1, install solar panels on sides of roof elective. This is an application to install solar panels on the east and west sides of the roof of the primary dwelling. The staff report has recommended a continuance. The guidelines just in general do not support the installation of solar in a visible location like this. We recommended continuance to allow the applicant time to consider if there are any alternative locations that it could be installed that would be more minimally visible. But in general, the guidelines don't support the application as proposed.
Is the applicant present?
Representative is present. Nate with Oki Solar.
Well, Nate, talk to us about this particular project. I imagine this one's going to be a challenge, but let's see if we can work through it.
Yes, sir. So this is a 30 panel solar project, proposed 16 panels there on the east slope that is visible and 14 panels there on the west slope. There is a garage in the back of the property that would have space for some panels. So we would be open to adjusting the design to see if we can place some panels on the back where they may not be visible from the road in any direction. If we go back to a previous view, looks like the west side of the house is a little bit more hidden from view from the street where these panels may not be visible. So I propose us to maybe adjust the design for the west side and then back on the garage there.
Is there possibility to put all of the panels on the garage in the back?
Not all at the current system size. There is a back slope of the home that may house some panels as well, but not all of the current 30 panels.
I think
this is Angela. The Robinson Street view here is showing the west side of your roof. And I think that you'll be able to see the rear slope of that roof there is somewhat less visible.
Okay. So would you propose adjusting the design to the back side of that house and then the slopes on the garage in the rear of the property?
I think, Nate, that's what I would propose. However, I will say there is nothing in the guidelines to support this. And I know that there is significant opposition to the installation of these panels regardless. I personally, I struggle with it because I think an alternative energy source is a smart thing for us going forward in the future. But there are I think these solar panels are specifically prohibited currently as the guidelines note. And I struggle being able to push a motion through on this particular item when there is very specific verbiage against it. Now, I'd be curious to know what some of my fellow commissioners think, and obviously we want to hear from the neighborhood association, also other citizens if they wish to be heard, but that is the challenge that we face.
I agree with Commissioner Fudge, and what I would like to see us do, I am planning on personally doing, is I do not think that we should grant any approval of solar panel. We specifically change the guidelines and either make it clear that there's certain situations they can be done, or maybe they can. I don't really know what the result of that would be. I think we talked about having it open and having people comment, people from the neighborhood, but I feel like unless they're just a unique circumstance where they're completely, they're not visible, I feel it's to use the guidelines for panels. It's supposed to take, there's all unique things, but this is really turned, I think it's going to be something that keeps up. I just that are past, are guidelines adequate for us to make decisions on solar panels?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just the whole nature of the technology and being the future of energy in many regards, I think is just that clash with, the Historical Preservation Society. If there's something that we can do to, let the neighbors, be heard on solar itself. I imagine at one time there was, some sort of similar conversation on satellite dishes or any other technology that sat on the roof, where now those are allowed. And, I could would go out on a limb and say that solar panels may be more important to the homeowner's bottom line, the future of energy, than a simple satellite dish. So I think there's more at stake here than just more TV channel options.
Nate, and I tend to agree with you, but the guidelines don't support it.
Yes.
Personally, I love the idea. From a commissioner on the Historic Preservation Commission's perspective, it's tough for me to get on board with it. And I am curious though, is the neighborhood association on, and are there any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular item as well?
This is Randy Ice with Heritage Hills. We're opposed to all solar panels in all locations.
Thank you, Randy. Any other citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay, any other questions or comments from the commission? And I guess for our purposes, is this a continuance to see if we can come to some sort of agreement between now and the next couple of commission meetings, or is this a denial? Angela?
Is it possible that the applicant would be willing to work towards something in the backyard, like an accessory structure, on which the solar panels could be mounted without being visible from any street location, in combination with the garage?
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. I know the homeowner does, strongly want solar for the property and the environmental benefits and producing clean energy for the home. So we can revisit with the homeowner and repropose next meeting.
Would you like to continue to August then, so that we can work on something like that?
To August or July?
If we continue to July, you have to have your entire proposal submitted by this coming Tuesday.
We can do that.
Okay. Do we have a motion for continuance to the July 7th meeting?
This is Commissioner Zacharitz. I'll make a motion to continue HBCA 21-00074 to the July meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second that motion.
Moved by Commissioner Zacharitz, second by Commissioner Meacham. All in favor, please vote in private. I am not seeing voting buttons currently. Not sure if I've done something different.
I have showed three people voting. If I need to vote for somebody, let me know.
I would, Commissioner Fudge would vote in favor or yay.
Okay, so I have
Commissioner Ramey votes yay.
Okay, I've got 5 yays then.
The motion's passed. We'll continue that to the July 7th meeting. And Nate, you can get your information to Angela and Katie by June 8th. That would be perfect.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we've been at this for a couple hours now. Do we feel like we need a break, or do we want to press through on items 8, 9, and 10?
This is Katie. I was going to suggest we take a break. We have items 8, 9, and 10, and then we do actually have an item under other business.
Okay.
So we'll have a little bit longer to go. We also have a person who has called in, or who is logged in as an attendee on Zoom, Miss Julie Hansen, that has her hand raised to speak. But the message I get when I attempt to allow her to talk is that she is using an older version of Zoom and cannot speak without being promoted to panelist. but it will not allow me to promote her to panelist. The recommendation is that she go ahead and call in by phone so that she can participate. So maybe if we take a break here for 10 minutes, that would allow her to access the phone number that is listed in the meeting agenda and
Okay.
call in so that she can participate. And hopefully we haven't missed the item that she intended to speak on. No, it looks like she's on for the next item,
Okay.
for item number 8.
Good.
If we can take a break till 4:18 and make sure we've got everybody where they can participate.
Okay. Let's go ahead and break till 4:18. We'll come back and wrap up our remaining items. Okay, it is 4:18. We'll give people a couple more seconds, but Mark, can you call roll again, please?
Yes, sir. Taylor Fudge.
Present.
Klaus Riemann Phillip. Absent. Vahid Farzaneh. Mary Jo Meacham. John Milner.
Present.
Present.
Was that Mary Jo?
Yes, sir.
And then John Milner?
Yep. Present.
David Kassipor. David Remy. Is David here? Linda Schultz. Ann Zacharitz.
Present.
I don't think we have a quorum until David Remy shows up.
Okay. Give him a couple minutes. Commissioner Remy, are you there? And if so, can you unmute and turn your video on, please? There we go. Ask and you shall receive.
Okay, so we have a quorum.
Excellent. Okay. So we were in the midst of starting our discussion on item number 8, HPCA 21-00080 at 224 Northwest 18th Street.
This is located in Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Shannon Ford Innovative Design Group for Carl and Julie Hansen for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct addition elective, 2, reconstruct rear deck elective. I just lost my place. Hold on a second. 3, replace driveway elective, and 4, reconstruct west wall of dwelling elective. Staff has recommended approval for all items with a couple of conditions regarding color of concrete, as has been discussed on some previous cases, and final details on windows and doors, verifying that they meet all the applicable standards and guidelines for materials. The one item that's somewhat unusual on this application is the reconstruction of the west wall of the dwelling. This is a wall that has window openings that have been enclosed formerly. We believe that happened quite some time ago. You can still see the window sills that remain in place. They propose to reconstruct this wall because it has deteriorated and has some structural concerns, but do not propose to put windows back in that opening. We have recommended approval for that with unique circumstances and with conditions that the window openings remain as they are now so that they could be restored at a later date if someone wanted to go back with windows in that location. The applicant for this one was able to call in. I can see their number on our list of attendees. So I'm asking the applicant to unmute, and they should be able to press *6 to unmute themselves and speak on this item.
Perfect. Is the applicant able to be heard? Julie,
Okay,
can you?
now we're,
Perfect.
yeah.
Great.
Okay, so talk to us specifically. We can hear you.
Yes, can you hear us?
We can hear you. Talk to us
Great. This is
specifically. Go ahead.
No, this is Shannon Ford, and Julie Hansen is here with me.
Perfect. So talk to us specifically about the concerns as noted by staff in the staff report, specifically on the wall, and are you guys amenable to a finish on the concrete that is similar in style to what one would expect in the guidelines, and the use of materials that are consistent on windows and doors and things of that nature?
Yes. So first concern is reconstructing the west wall. We do not want to change anything structural. We just want to repair the damage. So we will be reusing the same sills, the same brick, just making sure that there's not any structural damage. So everything will stay as you see in the picture, just not crooked. And the concrete color, we are more than happy to do the recommendation. We do not need to use an integral color. We're more than happy to come back in and have it to where it looks more like it's an aged look on the concrete. That is not a problem. And very happy to comply with, on the windows, the muttons and the back door. All of the new doors and windows are going to be on the south side, and so we'll have all of them match.
Okay. That all seems pretty straightforward.
Very good.
Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard? Does the neighborhood association wish to speak on this particular project?
This is Randy Ice with Heritage Hills. We sent in written comments, and they should be in your packet.
Do we have any questions from commissioners for the applicant?
I do. Okay, I'm looking, I think unfortunately, the drawings, I think, are difficult to understand. The first thing is, and I'm not really sure about this, because is the new addition done in such a way that it's distinctive from the original?
Yes. So we're taking where we have the brick transition, created a pilaster so that it matches the look of actually the west wall that we're repairing. So there'll be a definite place, an inside corner where we change brick. We're using a historic brick provided by Acme, but there's a slight size difference. So we wanted to make sure that any brick transition would be on an interior corner so that it still is a definitive change.
Is it a flat wall? Is it flat or is it offset?
It's got a slight offset with the brick. That's what the pilaster creates, the offset.
Okay. It's not very distinctive in the drawings. And that would be my other question, is there are no dimensions on if there's new windows or old windows, or the material that's going to be used on the new windows. I mean, we've talked about this before, is that an inspector has to be able to use these drawings to stand there and make sure that what we approved is what was built. And I mean, they are small. I can't even blow up. I mean, this is a problem with our viewing situation, is that even if I try to make them bigger, I can't read the writing. I think the intent is probably good, but I just feel like that the level of documentation is not to the point where an inspector could make sure that what we've approved, there's just too much room for interpretation. And the other, the pilaster part, I'm not really sure. I think I see it, but it's just 2 lines. I just think that is one of the requirements for the addition, is that it be distinctive. And I understand where you're going with that. I'm just saying that the drawing does not clearly delineate that. And so I would request new drawings that were clear.
Right. Do you have the floor plan where it has the window sizes and it shows where the pilaster begins?
I mean, I have everything. I can tell you. Do you know what page it's on?
So on the submittal, let's find out. I'm not sure about that. Let's find out.
I'm looking at a site plan.
We have a site plan. We also have elevations.
I see the elevations are not labeled and do not have material, or if the pilaster is the 2 lines that are drawn there, that it's not telling there. So
there should be a floor plan also.
I have a roof plan.
the
And
window,
I
the
have a
floor plan.
site plan. And I have a site plan.
Well, I can get you the floor plan. And actually we have all the plans they're drawn on a 24 by 36. So, and I know that's too large for you guys to distribute amongst each other.
We're not, there's been nothing, I mean, we're only seeing what's online or on the computer. So there's not a
We
drawing.
can submit, there is a floor plan drawn. So we can submit that if you just need it. And it has the windows, sizes labeled.
And okay, not just that, but I mean, I'm looking at your elevations and I'm not seeing, usually on a window, you have the dimension of the surround, the new material. So I don't really know which windows are existing and historic. And then, I mean, I'm going to assume the windows in the addition are, but I'm looking at the back of the addition and it's also looking flat. There's no offset there. So, and then when you get over to the picture, are you looking at, is it the east elevation and the two lines that are drawn? That represents, you're calling it a pilaster. Is it, I'm not really sure what, is it bricks?
Yes, it is brick. It is the new brick.
Does it?
So I have it listed as old brick and new brick.
Uh-huh.
And then recess, where it says recess, new brick, 2 inches to the inside. And then the 2-inch brick reveal. And it's labeled old brick on the east elevation and then where the new brick starts.
Right. I think, I mean, it would be my preference for something like that to be detailed so that I can understand. I mean, so like I said, I think there's just too much interpretation in my opinion. That's all. That is my question. My question is not really how you're going to do it. It looks like everything's fine. I just don't think that the drawings are distinctive enough for it to be looked at by somebody else and told, did they do what they said on the drawings or not? That's my comment on the project.
Okay, thank you.
So Katie, based on that comment, and I know we want to get comments from other commissioners as well, if we ask for more detailed site plans, is that something that could be approved with the condition that there's more detailed site plans, or do we need something different? Angel, I see you've got your hand raised too.
I can actually work with the architect towards getting the drawings much more clear. I did speak with the architect, so I know that the pilaster itself is in fact a projection, and there is a change in the size of the brick from the existing historic brick to the proposed reused brick that they're going to use. I think Joe is completely correct. This just isn't very legible, and we can work together towards getting that more legible and including getting dimensions for any trim work, windows, that sort of thing on these drawings.
This is Katie. Yeah, if there aren't any major concerns about the design itself, we just want better documentation, then that's something that could just be submitted to staff.
I don't know that I have any major concerns with the design itself, but I'm with Commissioner Meacham.
I don't either. If you understand it, I just think that the drawings are just not clear. If you think that you can get distinctive drawings that an inspector could compare and that we could look back, I just don't want to be in a position, particularly it seems like with brick projects, it's really hard to know how it's going to turn out without some specific information. So anyway, I would go for that and depend on staff
I can get a detail as well, Jim. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I would really like to, I mean, I would say this time, but I in the future, I would like, I just don't think these are appropriate drawings to be turned in for such a big project.
Sure. What other questions or comments do we have from commissioners? Okay, do we have a motion? Do we have any commissioners that would like to make a motion on this particular project? We must do something with it. Commissioner Meacham, you are muted.
I would make a motion to approve, so which one are we? To approve HPCA 21-00080. Just a second. Pull up everything we can. I'm sorry, I have to go back to the staff report. To approve all items and specific findings and conditions as stated by the staff in the staff report, with the additional condition that a set of drawings to include doesn't have to be an interior floor plan. It can be an exterior plan of the house that shows where that connection is, and elevations, which can be limited to just the sides and the back to show the addition, how the addition works. So I don't know if there was one on the front, but I wouldn't ask for that one to be repeated, but just the sides and the back, and like I said, a floor plan. Doesn't have to be the interior of the floor plan, just the exterior walls so that we can clearly see where that delineation is. And the unique circumstances of also that were noted under item 4.
Commissioner Meacham, do we have a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Zacharitz.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, second by Commissioner Zacharitz. All in favor, please vote in Prime Gov. Okay, motion's passed. And we will move on to item number 9, HPCA 21-00082 at 705 Northwest 20th Street.
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Kenneth Anchman, Preservation and Design Studio, for Christopher Gray Prairie Property Solutions for certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove and replace 2-story front porch elective, 2, remove and replace front doors and install light fixtures elective, 3, remove 2-story back stair elective, 4, remove 2nd-story back door elective, 5, remove and replace driveway elective, 6, remove and replace back door, stoop, and awning, and install light fixtures elective, 7, remove and replace fence elective, and 8, construct garage with light fixtures elective. Staff has, so this is a lot of items. The applicant is on the call and will be able to, I think, walk the commission through the project, but it's reconstructing a 2-story front porch, constructing a new garage, other changes to the rear of the primary structure, and staff has recommended approval of all items with conditions addressing materials on some of the items, addressing the change in the size of door openings on the structure, conditions similar to what we've proposed on other items at this meeting regarding the paving color and finish, and some unique circumstances regarding features that are non-historic on the structure. The garage does meet all applicable guidelines and standards as far as the size. We do not have photo documentation of the historic garage, but it appears compatible with the structure and consistent with the guidelines for a new garage construction.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything in particular you want to share with the commission regarding the notes from the staff report?
I don't think so. Thank you.
It all seems pretty straightforward. Katie, is there anything that we need to dig into in particular that staff would like commission to discuss? Commissioner Meacham, what's on your mind?
I was just going to ask Ken if he agreed to all the conditions.
This is Catherine, actually.
Oh, okay.
we do have a few comments that we wrote on the staff report just for your information. The door openings are going to remain their original size, so there's no change to the door openings. The new doors will fit the original openings as they are and be the same size. I think that was a point of clarification on the staff report. Let's see. On the condition for the awning in the back, the condition says that the proposed awning would be reduced to address the pedestrian door only. Our challenge is that we don't have enough room between the door and the window to actually get a sound connection for that awning. That's why we took it so that it would cover the door and the window. Since it's on the back and it's not really visible, we felt that this was an appropriate action.
Seems to make sense. Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this project, or anybody from the neighborhood association? What other questions from commissioners do we have?
I would make a motion to approve.
Let's hear it.
Okay, I would make a motion to approve HPCA 21-00082 with the specific findings as noted by the staff on the staff report. The conditions as noted on the staff report, with the exception of the proposed awning. I would eliminate that condition and the unique, in the unique circumstances that the door, deck, and awning, with the unique circumstances noted. Is that, so everything but the condition for the awning to go over the pedestrian door. With the unique I'll add that. Instead of that condition, I'll add a unique circumstance that that in order to install the awning securely, it must cover both door and window.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Zacharitz.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Zacharitz. All in favor, please vote. PrimeGov. The motion passes. The items are approved with conditions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 10, HPCA 21-00066. Let's see, at 518 Northwest 14th Street.
This is located in Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architects for Monica Jacks for certificate of appropriateness to item 2, construct addition at south end of garage. Let me make sure I've got the items right here. Sorry, I'm in the wrong document, just a second. Item 2, construct addition at south end of garage, elective. Item 3, construct balcony above garage addition, elective. And item 4, construct new stairs on east side of garage, elective. The commission saw this application previously with designs that indicated an addition to create a 3-car garage. We discussed in that previous meeting that the applicant had provided some revisions to that that you now see before you today that actually create a 4-car garage. The garage is 2-story. The proposed addition is not 2 stories, but it does create a balcony on the roof of the 1-story addition to the garage. The staff report recommends continuance because the garage does now exceed the maximum size supported by the guidelines for the site, which would be 5% of the lot, in addition to general concerns about appropriateness of the size, massing, detail of the garage. And I believe the applicant and property owner are on the call to speak.
Excellent. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Can you talk to us about the size of this particular garage and what you guys are planning to do?
I'd be happy to. So Holly Hunt with Sam Gresham Architects, 400 Northwest 23rd Street. This project, is everyone hearing me? I think I'm actually take these out. One sec.
We can hear you fine.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
So yeah, this garage addition, it's very minimal as far as its changes to the actual structure. It's an long existing two-story garage. So essentially what we're doing is just taking that same garage door and making two of them to provide 4 car spaces for parking. And the upstairs, the windows, all the details on the existing structure will remain as they are. We will relocate a few windows, but no new doors, no new windows, well, with the exception of the garage door. And the homeowner has since picked that door, a wood door, so I'll be getting that to staff just after the meeting. So basically, this size thing, we've had a lot of discussion today about that, and I would make a really good argument that this is the case. This is the case where a larger garage is acceptable and appropriate, and it's because this block of 14th Street has not only historically larger accessory structures, but the commission has even approved larger garages on this particular block. So, you know, they list in there 820. It's actually a little under 820. It's 818 is the total new garage size. But just today, and over the few weeks, I've been surveying the neighborhood and have found that this particular block, it has many structures over 800 square feet. I found 9 just on 14th Street between Dewey and Hudson. So, and many of them are much more than 800. Just next door to the west of the Jack's residence, visible from the street, since it's on a corner lot, their garage is 816 square feet. Similarly, on the opposite corner of the street, which is a corner lot as well, and their garage is visible from the street, and it's 828 square feet. Just across the street from that one on the north side of Hudson, they have an accessory structure that's 1,165 square feet. And I'd be happy to put together something just to, like, if you were to do a Google street map, you could see, I went to the county assessor webpage and got these exact square foot numbers. You can see, this is my list of the 9 properties, all of which have more than 800 square feet and some exceeding 1,000 square feet. So again, I know it's difficult for the commissioners to make these difficult choices when things like this come up, and you know, the 450 square feet and the 5%, those guidelines I completely respect and understand. But this particular case, I think a larger garage is appropriate, not only for this neighborhood, but particularly this street. The street has larger accessory structures throughout. This one, our property, is sandwiched between 2 other properties. It is literally not visible at all. Not only because the garage is centered behind the house, but the other larger garages of the neighbors, you know, approach the fence, and really the neighbors can't even see this. It's mentioned that it's visible from 13th Street from the south, which is somewhat true, but since we're not changing the second floor at all, that will remain as it's visible now. You won't see, I would suggest revising from my proposal would be to, I proposed and shown you a 14-inch handrail and guardrail that goes around the balcony on the rear. We could reduce that to 36 inches. I understand that that's more common in residential applications. For me, I mean, I do a lot of commercial work, so 42 inches is preferred. But I think that reduction in the height of the hand railing will help. Also, the homeowners, this is something that they've brought to my attention that they'd like to do, is to add to the application an 8-foot fence along the rear of the property, further hiding the addition and the railings at that point. As that currently the picture that's shown, the homeowners have a 6-foot fence. So I think raising that to an 8-foot fence would even more help the invisibility of this addition. The neighbors to both sides of this property both have 8-foot fences. So I think it would be something that would be appropriate for the commission. Obviously that's not on this application today, but it's just something we certainly intend to do. So I wanted to bring that up. So again, the main point that I would make though, is that the garage size that we're proposing today is not even remotely close to the largest in the neighborhood. In fact, it's more the average for this street. Many of the houses, or I'm sorry, accessory structures exceed 1,000 square feet. 5 right here that I can count on my list. So again, in keeping with the conversations that we had earlier, and I know I'm asking for you all to make a difficult choice, but it is a choice that's protected within the guidelines and it's allowable. And for all of their other neighbors to have these larger, much larger accessory structures, I feel like a small addition to their existing larger accessory structure is appropriate.
Holly, on your survey, do you know how many of those are historic and how many are new?
Okay, so at 617 Northwest 14th, for example, the commission approved, it was built in 2008 at 840 square feet. The one on the corner of Walker and 14th, again, same block, was built in 2005 and it's 1,313 square feet. So again, I think even the recent commissioners have felt like larger structures, larger accessory structures are appropriate on this block.
But our new guidelines were after that. Is that correct, Katie, that the new garage guidelines were after those dates?
Holly, repeat the dates again.
2008 and 2005.
Yes, the garage guidelines were revised after that.
So I think we would be looking at the 5%.
Right. Which would be 680 square feet. So what we're asking for is about 130 over that number. But again, again, if you're allowed to make a judgment call as a commissioner, given the leeway in the guidelines, particularly for additions and garage sizes, it's the majority of the structures on this block exceed 800 square feet. So, and some are historic and some are more recent. So again, even the commissioners, even if that particular guideline wasn't spelled out that way, I still feel like approving, the commissioners approved a considerably larger garage than what we find, say, on 19th or 20th Street, where we have some smaller structures. All the structures on this block are larger. The houses are larger and the accessory structures are larger. So that would be our unique circumstance here.
I would agree with the conditions cited by the staff in the staff report.
I tend to as well. I think the garage is, in its current proposal, is too large. Recognizing that some decisions were made many years before I think the commission members here were in play. It's just too big. The guidelines don't support it. I recognize the desire to have a larger garage, to park more cars, in covered places, but I cannot get on board with a garage that clearly exceeds the maximum supported size for this lot.
I concur with both of those comments.
Do we have any other comments from commissioners? Any citizens or neighborhood association members that wish to be heard on this project?
This is Randy Ice with Heritage Hills. Heritage Hills believes the ordinance should be enforced as written.
It seems really straightforward to me in this particular instance. We've had this discussion several times today. I'm just not in favor of an application that clearly exceeds the guidelines that are supported. So I think it's pretty clear for me where I would end up in a vote.
I'd almost like to have Katie repeat what she said earlier, though, about those guidelines being written particular to new construction and to what they were seeing at that time. This is different than the other applications that we've heard, given that it's on this 14th Street block where a majority of the structures are larger. I think in that situation, you can that's the leeway. That's why it was written that way, so that there could be consideration for properties who have unique circumstances such as this, where all the neighbors on the block get these larger structures, historically larger. I mean, not just new projects that were approved by commissioners before this guideline was written. I'm saying historically, all of the structures are larger on this block. So maybe, that piece of guideline wasn't particular to this case.
I guess for me, I see that point. I don't agree with it. I think historically this garage is significantly smaller than what is being proposed now. And I just think it's too large. And I think, quite honestly, I think you mentioned different earlier. I think this one it's significantly different and significantly larger than some of the others that we denied today.
I mean, the other is the 5%. We've used that. We used it over in, I think it was Edgemere, where it was a very, very large lot, and they were able to build a very large garage as a result. But I think that the 5% also makes sense, too. So.
Well, then these people were allowed to exceed that in 2008 and 2005. And I think that the reason is because the commissioner saw the unique circumstance that this street has larger structures, both historically and recently.
Again, I will concede that point. I just don't agree with it. Do we have any other commissioners that wish to be heard, or do we have a motion on this particular item?
Katie, is there another continuance?
Yes, they've been heard one other time. I believe, Angela, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they have a continuance left.
Would you like to continue to the next meeting, Holly?
Yes, please. I'll try to get you some more documentation to show this unique circumstance.
Okay. I would make a motion to continue HPCA 21-00066 to the July 7th meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. Yes, I'll second Commissioner Zacharitz.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Zacharitz. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that continuance is passed. We are going to move this. Is it to the Which meeting is it?
July.
To the July meeting. Okay. Thank you, Holly.
Thanks, guys.
Let's see, that takes care of all of our items for individual consideration. We will now move on to item number 7, which is other business. Item A, HPCA 19-00085 at 705 Northwest 27th Street. I don't believe there's any action that we need to take on this. It was simply an update on the brick condition.
That is correct. We had an applicant previously that had painted the brick and was asked to remove the brick and to report back to the commission on the condition of the brick following the paint removal. So this is simply an update of the condition of the brick. There's photos available for your review, but there's no action for the commission to take. And just for the record, to make sure we got it down, that the continuance on the previous item was to July 7th, specifically not the July meeting.
Oh, my apologies. July 7th. Okay, let's see, Mr. Harlan available to discuss the condition of the bricks?
Mr. Harlan is not on today. To the best of my knowledge, he didn't plan to be here today. However, he has been observing the brick for the past several years, watching the stabilizer that has been applied to both the brick and the mortar. He will return one more time, this time next year, for a final report on the condition of the brick. He has noticed no change in the brick or the mortar since the stabilization was applied.
Okay, thank you, Angela. So do we need to do anything on that, or can we move on to item B?
We can move on to the next item.
Okay, let's move on to item B, SPUD-1316 at 424 Northwest 30th Street.
This is an application in Jefferson Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Johnson and Associates for Tyler Bolton for, this is actually a request for a recommendation regarding request to rezone to a simplified planned unit development in accordance with regulations of the R2 medium low density residential UCD urban conservation district and HL historic landmark overlay district, except with restrictions and uses as called out within the proposed SPUD. So this is a property that it's currently zoned C3 commercial, and the applicant, but it is, as you can see, originally built as a residential structure. They intend to continue to use it as a residence, but would like the zoning to allow for the construction of a garage apartment. Historically, this property is indicated on the Sanborn map as flats, which is what they called apartment buildings. You can see there that there were 2 entry points on the front of the building. Historically, this property is also indicated to have had 2 garages, one of which spanned nearly the entire width of the rear lot line and was indicated to be 2 stories tall. Staff has recommended a recommendation to approve with a condition to which the applicant has agreed, limiting the height of any accessory structure to be built to no more than 25 feet. Any new construction or any changes to the existing structure would still come back to the commission for a certificate of appropriateness as they would now. But the applicant's representative is on the call and can answer any other questions about the proposed rezoning.
Okay. Mark, is there anything that you want to relay to the commission about this particular project?
Yeah, just a few things. I guess at this point, good evening. Thanks for everyone's time today. My name is Mark Zitzow. I'm with Johnson and Associates. Address is 1 East Sheridan Avenue in Oklahoma City. I appreciate Katie's summary and her help through this process, getting us to this point. I just want to, mention a couple things. We have a recommendation right now for approval to head on to Planning Commission, which is next week, and we're anticipating a second recommendation of approval from the planning staff on the comprehensive planning side, because our application falls in line with Plan OKC. This is a unique property, and I think we've heard that on all of them today, but I think where I want to go with that is, if you look across the street from this property, it's straight C3. It's developed as commercial. It's not an historic preservation overlay. Our side of the street is, and we have C3 zoning with some overlays. Essentially we're down zoning this. We're removing a lot of uses that may not be compatible with our portion of the street. Katie mentioned the Sanborn maps. I think if those buildings were in existence today, we wouldn't be here. We would be allowed to have the multiple apartments of significant size with multiple garages. So if those were here, this application would not be before you because it's not. We're seeking to add density into the core of Oklahoma City. And to us, that's kind of the heart of our application. Plan OKC supports densifying the urban core. We believe that we're doing it in an appropriate and gentle manner. And I would just say that, I've listened to all the garage apartment conversations today. I would note, I think this is important to note, everything that's been discussed today is a guideline. The commission is given discretion over these guidelines because all of these sites are unique and have their own characteristics. So in our case, we're not sitting in the middle of a completely developed block of single family homes, of cottages, of one-story buildings. This is where the discretion of the commission comes in. Ultimately, our path for approval for this is you all recommending approval, hopefully, Planning Commission recommending approval, and on to City Council. Based on the recommendations of approval from the staff, we believe that we're in conformance with Plan OKC, with the regulations in place for this particular site, for what we're requesting. So with that, be happy to answer any questions, and we would seek your approval.
Oh, I must ask, are there any other citizens that wish to be heard or anybody from the neighborhood that wishes to speak on this particular project?
We didn't get any comments from the neighborhood association or from any neighbors about this proposal.
Sorry, if I may, Chairman Fudge, we did receive one letter of support from a neighbor, which was sent on to the planning staff. Katie, I'm not sure if that was forwarded.
You are right. I believe that was shared with the commission. My apologies.
Well, I think staff has recommended that we recommend this for, that we send this on for recommended approval. I'm comfortable with that. Do we have any other questions from our commissioners on this particular project? And then do we have a motion?
I have questions on this. And this probably is just a question for staff. We're just approving the approval of a SPUD, correct? I mean, we're not approving anything design-wise, correct?
That's correct. So this allows them to have this use at the property. It makes an allowance for setbacks that are consistent with the surrounding properties, for a height that is actually less than what the base zoning would currently allow. But it does not tie the commission's hands as far as reviewing a design for a structure to be built. That would all still come back through the commission and would be held to the standards and guidelines, just like any other proposal.
Okay. And then I guess a question for the applicant. I do understand that the 300-foot notification went out. Was this project taken before the neighborhood association? Was there a meeting called for the neighbors to come and view this project? Anything outside of just that city notice that goes out that I do feel like sometimes it doesn't always get viewed by residents?
Not to my knowledge. We were engaged by the architect. I'm not sure if they met with them, but my guess would be that a meeting has not taken place. And the only notification being sent out would be the 300-foot notice. I'd add that the 300-foot notice would have been sent out for this meeting, and it will be sent out for the subsequent meetings as well. And if I may, one point of clarification, because it's just been a topic today, Katie. Our site plan that's submitted in the SPUD is proposing a garage larger than 450 square feet. Through this process, I think what the property owner is looking for through this process is that when we get to design, that footprint of it has been approved. So if we need to ask for an amendment to the SPUD to allow as shown, then we would seek to do that. I'd hate to get all the way through this fairly lengthy and expensive process to come back and then be restricted to a a 400 square foot garage simply because it's a guideline. I think now is our chance to request, and it's not a variance to it because it's a guideline, but to state that specifically in the SPUD document so we move forward and everyone's on the same page.
Are you saying, is there an associated drawing with this?
Yes, there was a site plan provided within the SPUD.
I do want to clarify that simply, how did you just say it? Just simply because it's a guideline that you would want to do something different. I think that if there's something on here that has a footprint that's over the 450, that it would not be, I wouldn't want to recommend it to go forward. I didn't look at this particular because we usually don't have them in this category. Katie, is there a site plan associated with this?
Yes, if you look at attachment 1 in the in PrimeGov and go to page 14, the last page of the attachment, there is an aerial photo that shows the site plan laid over the image of the property. And they are showing a larger garage than 450 square feet, and they're proposing a 2-story garage. It doesn't have design details. And this is typically a little bit backwards from our process because usually we would say, well, you need to get the zoning approved and then come through for the design review. In this case, because of the research that we did on the history of the development of this property, as well as the fact that we have numerous large 2-story garage apartments kind of in the surrounding area, staff did recommend approval. I would defer to Rita on if there needs to be something more specific in our recommendation or in the SPUD document itself on the size of the garage to indicate that that's going to be acceptable going forward. That's not something that's typically specified to that level of detail in a
SPUD
zoning document.
I wouldn't be opposed to the 2-story garages, depending on what is shown on the original Sanborn maps. If that was close to if it was originally built like sometimes they built them as one more unit, if that was typical and that's what the original one was, that might be information for, but I feel uncomfortable giving them a size on a recommendation. This is really just a recommendation. It's not an approval.
That's where I'm at too. I think we need more detailed plans. We need more detailed information to even consider, that making that comment or statement or recommendation on the size of the proposed garage apartment.
And
Or
Katie,
in what aspect?
Say that again.
A full design needs to be, if they're going to put a design with the SPUD, then the design needs to be part of this recommendation. It's still not approved.
We're not approving anything. All we're doing is making a recommendation.
So, we could recommend, but we would still say that the commission has the authority to use the guidelines for any new structure that is proposed for the site.
Mary Jo is correct. This is Rita. Mary Jo is correct. You want to have as much information as you possibly can so that when you make your recommendation, it's from a place of expertise, so that when the reviewers look at it, they are saying Historic Preservation Commission has weighed in on this, and this is in their specific expertise, the thing that they recommend happen as far as the SPUD goes. So that's why it's critical that you get as much information as you can so you can make that kind of a recommendation.
So Rita, are you saying that they need to submit a design with it to be approved, or that we need to include something that says we have the authority to approve the size and design?
I think if they have a design available, that's a good thing. But if they don't have a specific one, but you do know that they want to do a general thing, then I think with the information that's available to you, you weigh in on that using information from the guidelines and say, if this was something that came before us as an application, this is what we would be most likely to recommend or to vote on, so that the information that's included in the SPUD represents your reasoned recommendation rather than just, yep, it went to HP. It needs to use your expertise.
So if I may, this is Mark with Johnson Associates. We are not at a point where we have elevations or renderings or anything like that. You will have the full purview to review the final design of the garage, window placement, door placement, materials. What we're seeking the recommendation of approval for is A, to allow a garage apartment to be built, and B, the footprint of it. You will have the full purview to weigh in on the guidelines at a later date for all of the other aspects of the garage.
Right, but you can see as today, if you've been listening, that the size is the number one thing that we look at. So we're not saying that you couldn't do a larger size, but if you had research based on the Sanborn maps or this or that, but I can't even tell from the drawing how big that is. But if it's up to 5%, maybe we could say yes, perhaps, but not just, if you don't have plans, then how do you know how big you want it to be?
The site plan that was provided is a 26 by 30 garage, 780 square feet. It's over 5% of the lot. We understand that we would not meet that guideline.
Okay. Well, then we would probably not approve the design.
Right, and so that's what we're asking approval for. And
so, are you asking for an exception? Are you asking for an exception up front?
Essentially, because we don't want to make it all the way through this process and get approved for a SPUD with a garage and a site plan that showed 780 square feet to come back and be limited to 450.
I'm not ready. I would not be able to do that today.
I would add that the research provided by staff shows that the Sanborn maps allowed or previously had these larger multi-level, multi-unit buildings on it. And we're building to what we believe in conformance with what previously existed.
Katie, do we have copies of the Sanborn maps?
I do not have copies of the Sanborn in the attachments, and that is my error for not putting those in there. There is a written description in the staff report. It shows in the starting in 1949 and then in the subsequent maps after that, a one-story frame garage midway back on the east property line, and then a second two-story garage on the rear property line that occupies nearly the full width of the lot. So that was where my comfort level came with recommending a recommendation of approval for a larger than typical garage.
When you say the full width of the lot, do you mean that there were maybe apartments upstairs with garages underneath?
That would be my expectation. Usually those will say auto house dwelling. It did not say dwelling, but it was a two-story. So with the building having been flats, I would assume the second story was also apartments in the garage. And there are other garage apartments adjacent.
I don't really think it's staff's responsibility to provide information that the applicant is using as a reason to have that large of a property. Anyway, my situation would be no, I do not have enough information today to give the recommendation if you are asking for us to include the size of the footprint.
So this is Katie. I have a question for legal, for Rita. The SPUD does not say anything other than the site plan. It does not say anything specific to the size of the garage. And it says that, we would still go through design review for the construction of a garage. Is there something else within that document that needs to be specified or clarified, or that, I guess it's not clear to me the extent to which this pins down a specific size for a structure versus saying the commission supports a garage apartment, period, end of discussion, and it's going to go back through design review at a later date with additional information.
I think what you want to do, because of the way it's worded on the agenda, it says with the specific, except with the restrictions and uses as called out within the proposed SPUD. So I think what you want is to get from the applicant as much information about what they'd like to do. And even if they don't know specifically, they could give you kind of a general idea of what they might want to consider. And then you could weigh in on that using information from the guidelines and make a recommendation based on that, so that when it's considered, your voice is heard as a commission, and the reviewers know that this is what you would expect to see in that SPUD. And then they could make their determination based at least on what you have recommended to them. But without more information about their plans, you might not be able to make maybe a best recommendation on it. So I would suggest that you get as much as you can from the applicant, and then measure that against the guidelines, the way you've been doing all afternoon, and make that as your recommendation, whatever that happens to be.
Rita, can't we just attach that, the fact that we recommend with the we recommend, however, any exterior work to the existing building or new properties built on the deal will go through the existing Oklahoma City Historic Preservation Guidelines. I mean, I don't really see how we can make an exception to the guidelines. I mean, if we recommend it, then and they have to come back to us, we have to be able to apply the full guidelines, not part of them, and not make a decision today on the size of a garage. That's no.
So that's why I think you need more information. But what they're doing with this SPUD is they're creating kind of their own little framework of these are the rules that will be applicable to us for this project. And so that's why I'm suggesting that you get your part in there, because once the SPUD is approved, things won't come back out of it. It will be, these are the rules for this particular property. So you want to get everything into that same box that they're creating while you can.
And Rita, I don't know, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
The way the SPUD is written is it still has the historic landmark overlay, correct?
I haven't seen it, so I don't know. I'm looking for it now.
This is Katie. The SPUD retains the historic landmark overlay. The findings that are recommended are that it retains the requirements and provisions of the overlay, which will require review and approval for any changes to the site or the exterior structures, and will not allow work that detracts from the architectural character of the property or district. That the SPUD incorporates uses that are compatible with the character of the property and surrounding district. That the proposed use and associated construction of a 2-story garage is consistent with the documented historic condition of this property. I think that
that's what I'm seeing, is that it applies.
So the guidelines absolutely apply. And I guess this is still my question. I have always understood that site plans and renderings and other documentation of that nature submitted with an application for an SPUD was not binding, unless it is written in the SPUD document itself that says this is allowed. All of those other graphics are not binding. I think the applicant is wanting to get the sense that a garage larger than what the guidelines specify would be approved, but I do not believe that the SPUD is codifying a size as it's written currently. But Mark and Rita, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
If I may, you're correct. The site plans that are submitted in PUDs and SPUDs are completely conceptual. The language that's listed in the SPUD is the binding regulations for the track moving forward. In this case, it's somewhat unique in that there's still a design review component that it needs to proceed through. We're adhering to all of those. And I think this is coming out of today's meeting, what I'm hearing, I am clarifying that we feel that we need to add in that the maximum garage size is 780 square feet. I understand this isn't part of your purview, but to go through this process to get to the end to come back and then the property owner cannot build what we've spent 5 months getting approved through an SPUD process. That's what we're trying to clarify.
Right. Once again, it's in a historic district. There are guidelines. So to say that you all were expecting and have spent all of this time and to get here, and then you say, we have to have this, that is not a convincing argument, in my opinion. Basically, you read the guidelines and then you said, we're just going to go for it. And then here you are today, and you are still demanding that we make this exception right now without even knowing anything. And I don't think that we can do that. I think that we can recommend with the idea it's a conceptual site plan, but all of the guidelines, there is no reason because you are a SPUD for our guidelines not to be applied to your project.
This is Katie. I'm wondering if a finding added to the commission's recommendation, acknowledging that that research done to this point indicates historic precedent for a larger than typical 2-story garage that would support construction, that would potentially support construction of a larger garage, has been evaluated or something, to give that acknowledgement that that exists without saying we're going to approve 780 square feet.
My fear is that's used against us when it comes up for consideration later on down the line.
I agree, Taylor.
And I don't want to be in that position. I'm happy to make the recommendation. I'm not happy to say that a larger than the maximum allowance garage apartment is appropriate to be built.
And I'm not saying that a larger garage apartment can't be approved.
Exactly.
But it can't be approved in this situation with just a footprint there. I mean, if there's proof that there was all of this on the back end of the property, I can see that is a unique circumstance. There have been all of this construction there, but I think that all of that has to be presented as part of a design in the future.
Yeah, I think you should get a little more. If you look at paragraph 7 of the staff, not 7C of the staff report, I think it gives you more information about what's being proposed. And I understand that they don't have all of it yet. They're just trying to create a framework. But I do think you need to get as much as possible so that you have a language in there that's consistent with what Katie is saying, what Commissioner Meacham is saying. You don't want to put yourselves in a situation where you're not able to make the recommendations that you would like because of things that you have blindly approved without seeing the whole project. I mean, I see this other part that it would retain the overlay zoning, but the original language in the paragraph C is they request the SPUD to modify the allowed use of the structure and site. So if you say, sure, let's do that. But the doing of it is only the first part of it, because that is the thing that you've talked about all afternoon is size. And you're agreeing here, if you did agree to that sure, go ahead and have that size, and then you're subject to us. I'm just saying you don't want to give up any review ability that you now have. So I think you need to look at the complete package and make your decision based on that review. Katie's recommendation is that you recommend approval with conditions. So you might want to look at her findings and see if those work for you. They look really good.
Mark, when does this go to Planning Commission?
It goes on next week.
Okay.
Oh.
So we typically don't continue these because we are not actually approving it. We are just providing a recommendation to Planning Commission. So I would say we could recommend approval of the uses as proposed and provide some sort of finding or recommendation addressing the concerns about review of the future design or the commission's considerations about the size.
Katie, your findings retain the requirements. How is what you have, how are your findings different than what the applicant wants? I mean, the last one is the proposed use is consistent with the documentation, but could we, and maybe the fourth finding is that, any new construction will have to go through the system, through the HP, application.
Well, and that's the very first finding, is that
right.
It retains the HL overlay and requires review and approval for any work to the site.
Or we could add 4 that it is in the SPUD that it is the site plan is conceptual.
The item number 1 in the finding says will not allow work that detracts from the architectural character of the property or district. And I could potentially see a larger than appropriate garage apartment detracting from the architectural character of the property and district. However, I don't know any of the unique circumstances surrounding this property. I don't know what the design is actually going to look like, how it's going to be situated. We have a proposed conceptual drawing, and I guess I'm not comfortable, including in a recommendation that there is that a larger than standard project will be approved.
Well, I would ask the applicant, do you think that what you saw as far as our recommendation, what's your interpretation?
We agree with the recommendation and the findings. I think with the caveat that our intent is to move forward to Planning Commission, City Council requesting approval of a 760 square foot garage. So
how could you do that without going through the HP process when the finding, when our recommendation, how can they give approval of something that goes through our commission?
Right. So in this particular scenario, what we're asking this board for is simply a recommendation. So as it moves forward, the end result is a specialized zoning district that has its own regulations baked into this document. Of course, we're including all of the other applicable guidelines for the final design and construction of the building. But from like strictly a land use standpoint, uses, setbacks, building height, building size, that's what we're seeking approval for. And that's why in this scenario, it's maybe a little bit awkward or different than a typical case that would be in front of you.
Rita, do you think it's possible that it could get approved without going through HP?
The language is that it is supposed to retain the requirements and provisions of the HL overlay. A requirement and provision is that it's reviewed by this body, is what I would argue. But it sounds like the applicant is trying to get a feel for how you might go with this before taking it further. It's almost like we want you to recommend these things generally. We know that we've given you only a concept. This is not an application to you, but we're saying this is what we'd like to have you consider and say whether or not this is going to work. So the second finding is that it is compatible with the character of the property and surrounding district. So those are factual things that you as a commission can make a determination about. You have your staff recommendation. I think you should look at all of these because, Katie and Angela have prepared this based on their interpretation of the guidelines and their experience. And then you all would weigh it based on your interpretation of the guidelines and your experience to make the recommendation.
I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement with them, but I feel like that that what I'm hearing from the applicant is that even if we do this, somehow he's going to be seeking a larger footprint as part of his SPUD. But if you read, staff also says that language has been incorporated into the SPUD to make clear that work affecting the site would require review. So I don't really see how that he can go forward with some kind of, even if he goes all the way through, I still don't see who's going to approve that size against the guidelines without the review of the HP.
This is Mark. I might offer just for clarity on this. I guess, based on how the staff report is written, then what I would say is we cannot agree to meeting all of the guidelines. So we agree to meet all of the guidelines with the exception of 450 square feet.
Yeah.
Oh, is that going to be a part of the SPUD?
That is the intent, yes. Moving forward, we'll submit, based on the conversation today, a revised copy of the SPUD to Katie and to Sarah Welch and everyone else in the planning department, stating that this SPUD will permit a 760 square foot footprint, but the design of all of that is still under the purview of the HP Commission.
Oh, okay. Then our recommendation, then our recommendation needs to include specifically that the size of new construction shall go through the Historic Preservation Commission and be reviewed as any other property in a historic district. That would be what I would include.
And as the applicant, we have no problem with that condition.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know what else we can do. Anne?
Can I jump in, Rita, and get your clarification? So changing the base zoning doesn't change the restrictions on the overlay. So if you change to a SPUD or a C3 or an R2, it's only dictating setbacks, bulk, mass, use, density. No matter what the base zoning is, as long as the HL overlay is in place, it will restrict the implementation of whatever is proposed. So I think a lot of this conversation seems to be baked into that basic understanding of the overlay. And it would seem to be that the way it's written, the findings are fine, except finding 3 needs to be revised if the commission's intent is to not interpret a larger than acceptable within the HL guidelines.
David, I think what I hear him saying is that whatever we do, he is going to turn around and ask for the 754 whatever to be a part of the SPUD. So
right, I get that, but what I'm saying is if he were to say a setback is 10 feet off the right of way,
right,
the HL overlay would further restrict it and make it match the street wall.
So do you think that even if they request that as part of the SPUD, that the HL will still be able to review the size of new construction?
My understanding, and I want clarification from Rita, is that the HL overlay further restricts the base zone.
Yes, that is correct. And one of the findings, the first finding under the staff recommendation is that very thing, that the proposed SPUD retains the requirements and provisions of the HL overlay and will require review and approval for any changes to the site or to the exterior of any structures in the form of a CA. So you will get to look at it, but it would not be a bad thing for you to make sure that it's very clear, as you have been doing, what your position is on at least part of the plan that's been proposed so far to you.
And specifically 3 to me could be interpreted because terms like large are used, 2-story accessory building, 2-story garage. I think there's enough language in 3 to where a reasonable case could be made that we knew about it and we approved it and it's a special exception. So I think 3 needs to be reworded to say, so long as it complies with the current HL overlay historic preservation guidelines.
I agree, David.
Good. This is Katie.
Yeah, I think that's good.
I think you could do that, or you could leave 3 and add a 4th to say that the design, placement, massing, and size of any new construction must be evaluated for appropriateness and compatibility with the guidelines through the design review process, or something like that, to say there's another step that is necessary here and the commission has not yet evaluated whether or not we would support that.
This is Mark again. Rita, this is just point of clarification, I guess, again. The precedence for PUDs and SPUDs in design review districts, if it is explicitly stated within the document of an allowance or permitted height, permitted building footprint, when it comes time to go back for our design CA, the SPUD is what is upheld, and that portion, that limited portion, has been removed from the purview of the commission. We've done this in Bricktown, we've done this in other places for various components of it, where, I mean, applicable and acceptable. So I'm offering this for just clarity so that when we come back with our design CA, it does not appear that we've attempted to hoodwink or deceive anyone. So I'm trying to be upfront in what this process allows us to do, which is allow through the SPUD for a 760 square foot garage. That's what we're seeking. And if Planning Commission denied it and City Council denied it, then that's where we stand. But if ultimately that gets approved, the application you will see before you again will be for a 760 square foot garage that is fully within your purview, except for the square footage of the garage.
And that's why I'm asking them, Mark, to consider that they say now, when they have this opportunity to make a recommendation that goes to the Planning Commission and to the council, exactly how they stand based on the facts they have, so that it's not a surprise later. You want it, and it sounds like maybe they don't want it based on how they've been addressing garages throughout the meeting today. So if they say, that's not something we would ever consider, but the council ultimately approves the SPUD that includes that, well, at least they've been heard. But if they say nothing and then it comes back and it's been approved, then, you know, they're looking at it from a completely different perspective at that point.
Rita, then do you think, then on number 4, I think we should just specifically address this issue, that we would say the conceptual site plan that it was included for our recommendation includes a 754 foot footprint of a proposed 2-story garage, period. The size of this property is generally not, the size of this addition is generally not approved by the Historic Preservation Commission without unique circumstance. That unique circumstance could be the properties that were there before, but somehow that I'm with you. If we specifically address this one issue that we feel like we should be able to consider in the future, then it will be there. And when the planning commission and the city council read it, they can see, hey, there is one issue that might come up. Maybe they agree with us, maybe they don't.
But at least they hear you. At least it's before them that the Historic Preservation Commission, filled with all of these people with expertise and staff, have weighed in, and this is what they think. So your statement is why this is such a critical part of the process.
So we could still make the recommendation. We can just note that we do have concern with the size of the proposed structure, correct?
Your recommendation can be either way. Staff's recommendation is that you recommend approval with conditions. So you could do that and say what those conditions are, including what Commissioner Meacham has described. They are relying on your expertise. So this is your opportunity to speak in writing about what you think and what should happen based on what you know so far as compared to the guidelines. So this is your statement. Make it good.
This is Katie. I'm wondering if something, I'm hesitant to see the commission go on the record saying, just as we wouldn't want to go on the record without having reviewed the design saying, yes, it's great, build it. I'm hesitant to have the commission go on the record saying, no, it's not okay, don't build it, because we haven't had the information that you all want to see to evaluate the design. I would rather see a finding or a condition that says the historic landmark overlay includes specific criteria addressing the size of accessory structures, and additional information is required in order to evaluate the appropriateness of the size as illustrated in the conceptual site plan, or something along those lines.
That's fine. That's what that's what I was going to say, something like that. So
yeah, that sounds really good.
I want to be able to give them the opportunity to present a unique circumstance, which they've already told you all have already told us it's possible because there was property like that in the back. It's just that it's not right for us to have to, we just don't want to be stuck with that one number, and wonder if you all get going as the owner and you want a different shape or something like that. What you've put on a piece of paper might prevent you from doing something that you would like a lot better. So, there you are on that.
And can we add a condition? So like the Wheeler district, I believe, has like a threshold for square footage before you have to go to the Riverfront Design Review Committee. So should we write in here as a condition that all physical improvements must go through the design review process through the historic preservation guidelines in accordance with the requirements of historic landmark overlay?
Well, the first finding written by staff, I think, says that.
It will require review and approval.
The document, the master design statement includes that. As part of them retaining the HL overlay, it retains the requirement, and it's written throughout the document as well. If you look through the master design statement, every place where there's an element that would require design review, it states that work would go to HP for review. So I think that piece of it has been incorporated in here completely.
Okay, so it sounds like we're good there. It's just further clarifying that no pre-existing exemptions or waivers or conditions have been approved.
Well, right. Maybe it's something like new construction shown on the conceptual site plan will also be included in the review for design and size, or something like that, so that it specifically is addressed.
I would just avoid all that, Mary Jo, and just say I think address it, say that garage is shown, But this approval is only for the base zoning change, that any physical changes, improvements are not agreed to by the commission.
Because
They have to go through the process.
I mean, right. I mean, they're going to go, I mean, I feel like what they're going to make changes is they're going to say, we agree, we'll go through the whole process, except for please approve this 754 square foot apartment.
Right.
And then it's going to go through and people are going, oh, well, we just have to approve this. And yeah, no problem. It'll go back to HP for the final design.
Right. That's why I said you add a condition that says no exceptions are approved or recommended by the commission.
At this time, I mean, it may be that when it comes back before us, we have unique circumstances that allow us to make that approval at the time, but.
Or the guideline changes.
Yeah, exactly.
I can support that condition.
So do we have a recommendation?
We just need to be really clear that there's not any pre-existing exemptions granted through the SPUD or because I guess we don't make that decision. The HP commission doesn't recommend that any pre-existing exemptions be included in the language of the SPUD.
I mean, Rita, what do you think?
I think you guys have talked it through, and I think what Katie wrote is really good. And I think with the extra language that you've been discussing and with Katie's recommendation, you have something good to submit.
So let me say again what I had said a moment ago. It was the historic landmark overlay has specific criteria addressing the size of accessory structures, and additional information is required to assess the appropriateness of the structure as shown on the conceptual site plan. Maybe recommendation of approval for the SPUD does not constitute a recommendation to approve the structure as shown on the conceptual site plan.
Right.
Or
Without
just leave it as it was. Sorry, guys, this is challenging.
I think
I know this has been going on for a while, guys. I'm sorry. I have a question. Is that all right?
Yes, Angela.
For Mr. Zitza. Mark, what is the height of the primary dwelling? We have a limitation of 25 feet on your proposed accessory structure. I'm wondering how it's comparable.
Right, we had a rough measurement to the, the roof line is right at 20. If you went to the highest point, it appears to be somewhere in the 25 to 27 neighborhood. So we agreed with the condition that no structure would be, over 25 feet, because that, seemed to be at a minimum how tall the existing house is. So we had agreed to that condition, which was put in the staff report.
So the condition is no taller than 25 feet, not no taller than the primary structure.
We can, either way, we're comfortable with either. The plan was after this meeting to submit the revised document back to staff that specifically stated the height requirement of the 25 feet. But if you prefer that no taller than the existing structure, that's okay with us.
Thank you.
This is Katie. We are going to lose quorum in about 10 minutes. So we need to pin down what our recommendation is.
Katie, you were headed in the right direction. Go ahead and can we write that in?
Yep. Okay, so let me read this one more time. The historic landmark overlay has specific criteria addressing the size of accessory structures. Additional information is required to assess the appropriateness of the structure as shown on the conceptual site plan. This recommendation of approval for the proposed SPUD does not constitute a recommendation of approval for the accessory structure as illustrated in the conceptual site plan.
Okay, I'm for that. I would be happy to make a recommendation with conditions and findings as noted by the staff in the staff report, and the additional finding. Is it a finding? or a
Yes.
condition, finding as written as written by staff during the meeting, however you want to do that.
So is that going to be finding 4 or is that a
Finding,
rewrite
yes,
of
it's gonna
finding
be,
1?
oh, it's gonna be finding what?
Finding 4.
Is it
Finding
is finding
4.
4? Okay.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Commissioner Meacham. Do we have a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Meacham, second by Commissioner Zacharitz on the recommendation to send the SPUD. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that's passed. Thank you guys for bearing with us on that. We'll move on to item number 8. I think we have item number 7. No, item number 7. Item number 8, administrative approvals.
Nothing particular to call out under administrative approvals. As always, these are posted online and you can contact staff if you have questions about any of those. We did have 2 items withdrawn that you see noted in the agenda, and no administrative closings or items from any other city boards, commissions, committees to report out at this time.
Okay. Let's see. We go through administrative closings. Any city council news?
Nothing from city council to report.
Anything from the Board of Adjustments?
Nothing from Board of Adjustment, and nothing from Planning Commission. We
Rita,
will report out on the status of this SPUD after that's gone to Planning Commission.
Perfect. Rita, anything from the Municipal Counselor's Office?
No, thank you.
Okay. Our next regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, July 7th, 2021 at 2 p.m. at the Municipal Building, City Council Chambers. No applications for this meeting were received. It says June 1. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. Our next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is on Wednesday, June 9th from 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main Street, Suite 900. Do we have any items from commissioners? Please no. Any citizens that wish to be heard? Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys for bearing with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you
Angela.
all.
Thanks
Great
a lot,
meeting.
too. Yep.